You got a convenience store that can freely travel between the apocalypse and the real world. You thought countless zombies would tear you to pieces, but the store unexpectedly has absolute protection. So you started selling cheap instant noodles, bottled water, and ham sausages at high prices. In the dangerous wasteland of the apocalypse, you'll build a business empire of your own. At this moment, you're holding a hot phone and listening to your girlfriend say coldly, "Let's break up. It has been 3 years since graduation, and you still don't have any savings." Your girlfriend finally couldn't stand your poverty anymore and turned to the rich second-generation Wang Hao instead. After the call ended, you sat on the stool, feeling defeated. For the past few years, to pay for your parents' treatment, you borrowed 350,000 yuan. In the end, your parents still passed away, and you still couldn't pay back the money. All you had left was a barely hanging on convenience store. But just then, everything suddenly started spinning. After looking around, you realized you'd arrived in the apocalypse. Through the window, you saw a bunch of zombies. The zombies were also drawn to the convenience store that had suddenly appeared. The next second, they all charged at you like crazy. You thought, it is over. But the sound of shattering glass you expected never came. The door that would normally break at a touch didn't budge at all now. Just then, a light screen appeared in front of your eyes. Current world, apocalypse era, store status, absolutely safe. Dimensional travel can be used again in 12 hours. In other words, as long as you stay here for 12 hours, you can return to the original world. You glanced at the monsters outside and ran a frustrated hand through your hair. The shop was less than 20 square meters and packed with all kinds of goods. Braised beef instant noodles, bottled water, ham sausages, bread, cookies. In the original world, all of this together was worth almost nothing. But what about here? A thought rose from deep in your mind. In the apocalyptic world, the most valuable things aren't gold or diamonds, but clean food and water. You rushed to the shelf in a few quick steps and picked up the most ordinary bottle of water. In the original world, this bottle of water sells for 2 yuan. In this world, overrun by zombies, how much would it be worth? You thought of that 350,000 yuan debt and remembered what Zhang Qian said on the phone, "Let's break up." You twisted open that bottle of water and took a big gulp. What you need to do now is use these 12 hours to earn your first pot of gold. You even started to wonder if 1 bottle of water for 1 gram of gold was too little. 1 bottle of water for 10 grams of gold. 1 pack of instant noodles for 100 grams. You forced yourself to calm down. Right now, you need customers first. With more than a dozen zombies blocking the door, what survivor would dare come near? But just sitting there for 12 hours was something you absolutely couldn't accept. Your eyes fell on the braised beef instant noodles. And just like that, a plan formed in your mind. In this world filled with rust and the stench of decay, what could be more irresistible than a fragrant bowl of instant noodles? You plugged it in and pressed the switch. The kettle started bubbling. There was actually still electricity in the convenience store. It seemed this system-bound space was completely separate from the outside world, a world of its own. The water boiled quickly. A rich, overpowering aroma instantly filled the shop. Even you couldn't help swallowing. But then another problem came up. How could you send that mouth-watering smell outside with any precision? You couldn't exactly open the door. You looked around the shop. In the end, your eyes landed on a range hood. The rich aroma drifted through that tiny passage and floated outside, into that deathly silent world. Time passed second by second. Outside, it was still silent as the grave. Just when your patience was running out, a burst of flames suddenly swept over those dozen or so zombies. You looked out the window warily. It was a woman. Her eyes swept over this shop, so out of place among the surrounding ruins. Interesting. In a hellhole like this, someone actually dares to open a store. She walked straight toward the entrance, but the next second, she slammed into an invisible glass wall. You're awakened too. Is this your ability? After a moment of silence, I'm Nightingale. Xiaoguo. How much for that? Gold. What age do you think this is? Who still uses something that useless? I only take gold here. Seeing how forceful her attitude was, Nightingale raised her hand and fired a shot. A burst of flame shot straight at your face, but the flame still vanished the instant it touched the barrier. Can we talk business now? Fine, Boss Guo. How much for this cup of instant noodles? Not much, 100 grams of gold. Why don't you just rob me? Even if gold is about as unwanted as scrap metal right now, that doesn't mean it is lying around everywhere. You don't have to buy it. After saying that, you ignored her. Instead, you started eating the noodles you just made. The sound of your slurping was especially grating. Nightingale swallowed involuntarily. She couldn't even remember how long it had been since she'd had a hot meal. Normally, she got by on scavenged canned food and energy bars, but those things could only keep her alive and gave her no real pleasure from eating. Just then, her stomach let out a soft growl, even though it was very quiet. In this kind of setting, it might as well have been thunder. Nightingale's cheeks instantly flushed red. You acted as if you hadn't heard it and kept enjoying your instant noodles. I don't have that much gold right now. Can you let me pay later? No credit here. You weren't here to do charity work. Besides, you'll be going back in less than 12 hours. Who knows if Nightingale can bring the gold back in time? At last, you finished the last bite of noodles and let out a satisfied burp. You casually took a sausage off the shelf, then flicked it with your fingers, sending it in a perfect arc through the air, as casually as if you were feeding a stray cat on the side of the road. Nightingale's body instantly stiffened. This was outright contempt, but reason told her that she should pick up the sausage and eat it right away. Time seemed to freeze. In the end, after 2.5 seconds, hunger defeated dignity. In just 3 bites, the sausage was completely gone. This is my sincerity. 100 grams of gold for a bowl of noodles. Fair price, no tricks. Wait for me. She tossed out those 2 words and turned to leave. With her skills, as long as she could find a survivor camp or some bank vault from before the disaster, getting 100 grams of gold wouldn't be hard. But then you called out to her again. Wait. You calmly took out a can of cola. The legendary cola, a drink that used to be everywhere before the apocalypse. But now, it was more luxurious than any fine liquor. This one costs 50 grams of gold a can. Without waiting for Nightingale to respond, you tore open another pack of spicy strips. This one is cheaper, 30 grams of gold. A can of ice-cold cola, spicy strips, and hot instant noodles. Before the apocalypse, these 3 things were just the cheapest combo. But now, they were unbelievably tempting. Nightingale's fists clenched at her sides until they creaked. You'd better have enough stock ready. Then, she disappeared. She was going to get gold. Right now, this instant. At this moment, dimensional travel still had 10.5 hours left on cooldown. You started checking your supplies. Master Kong, 10 cases of Nongfu Spring, 15 packs of spicy strips, and plenty of sausages. You even found 5 eggs in the corner. An idea came to mind. A little over an hour later, a loud bang came from outside the door. Nightingale was back. She looked a little worn out, and she had a black bag in her hand. 200 grams of gold, no less, maybe more. Allow this item to enter the safe zone one way. After silently granting permission, the black bag was lifted by an invisible hand and gently dropped at your feet. Nightingale's pupils shrank sharply again. This man was even more unfathomable than she had imagined. After checking the goods, you took out braised beef instant noodles, ice-cold cola, and spicy strips. Then, right in front of Nightingale, you boiled another kettle of water. Finally, carrying the steaming bowl of instant noodles, you walked to the door. Just when Nightingale thought you were about to hand the food over, you suddenly stopped. You took an egg out of your pocket and looked at Nightingale. Miss, want to add an egg? How much? 50 grams of gold. For 1 egg, 50 grams of gold. Why don't you just rob me? You don't have to buy it. This shop's eggs are sold only to those destined for them. With that, you were about to put the egg back in your bag. Wait. As a powerful flame awakener, Nightingale had always been the one others submitted to. But today, she kept hitting one wall after another. The words, "I don't want it anymore," were stuck in her throat, unable to come out. She reached into a small leather pouch at her waist and felt around inside. A crystal, the size of a pigeon egg, lay quietly in her palm. I don't have any more gold on me right now. I'll trade this for your egg. You raised an eyebrow. You thought to yourself, what the hell is this thing? Just as you were about to refuse, a light screen appeared. High energy item detected. Low-level zombie crystal core. Strongly recommend completing this transaction. I had it all wrong. So you'd misunderstood how the convenience store worked. You'd been trying to figure out how to pay back that 350,000 debt, when in fact, the convenience store was after these crystal cores. In an instant, everything clicked. But your face still showed a hint of disgust. What kind of lousy rock is this? It looks pretty gross. This is a crystal core from a zombie's brain. It is essential for awakeners to cultivate. Gold isn't even fit to be compared to it. So crystal cores were this world's cultivation resource. I run a convenience store. What would I want with this thing? Nightingale trembled with rage. This man was not only impossible to reason with, he was also blind to value. Seeing that she looked ready to explode at any moment, you let out a sigh. Fine, fine. Since you're being so sincere, I'll make an exception this once. As soon as you finished speaking, you silently said to yourself. The crystal core instantly vanished from Nightingale's palm. Without even looking at it, you casually slipped the crystal core into your pocket. Then you brought over a deluxe cup of instant noodles with extra egg, along with a cola and some spicy strips, and set them in front of Nightingale. She picked up the fork and started wolfing it down, not even leaving the chopped scallions at the bottom of the bowl. Then she opened the cola and finished it in one go. Only then did she tear open the spicy strips and eat them one by one. The whole time, you just watched in silence. I'll be back. After dropping those words, Nightingale turned and disappeared into the darkness at the corner. Only after Nightingale left did you take out the crystal core. A basic zombie crystal core can break the lock on human genes. After using it, there is a chance of becoming an awakened one if the absorption fails. The user will be broken down into basic particles on the spot. The success rate is less than 1%. Your hand trembled, and you almost threw the crystal core away. What the hell is this? Less than a 1% success rate. How is this an opportunity? This is clearly a one-way ticket to hell. But then the convenience store popped up a prompt. Within the store's range, the host will be immune to any form of harm, including but not limited to physical damage, energy impact, mental contamination, and genetic collapse. You looked at the crystal core in your hand again. For you, this meant zero risk and huge reward. How do I use it? Swallow it directly. This thing doesn't look edible at all. But when you thought of Nightingale summoning flames out of thin air, you swallowed it whole. The next second, a wave of intense pain swept through your entire body. Your whole body curled up like a shrimp. Second by second, time passed. At last, the agony faded, replaced by a body overflowing with strength. Is this what an awakened one feels like? What terrifying strength. You copied Nightingale's pose and tried to summon flames, but there was absolutely nothing at your fingertips. Damn it, did the awakening fail? The more you thought about it, the angrier you got. You slammed your fist into the shelf beside you. Suddenly, the shelf and all the snacks on it vanished. Your consciousness was linked to another space, and inside it was the missing shelf. You tried reaching out your hand. The missing shelf returned to its original place. Only then did the system prompt appear. Awakened one, Xiaoguo, your awakened dimensional storage can isolate space, time, and consciousness. Its current storage capacity is 1 cubic meter. As you kept storing and taking out the spicy strips, storing and taking them out, you gradually fell into deep thought. Gold can only solve the debt crisis, but crystal cores are the real key to dimensional travel. There are still 9 hours left on the cooldown. You had to stock up on more crystal cores before leaving. The smell of just one pack of instant noodles drew in the Nightingales. What if you boosted that smell tenfold or even 20-fold? So you pulled out a huge pot and cooked a full 20 packs of instant noodles. Finally, you turned the range hood up to the highest setting. This was your apocalyptic Buddha jumps over the wall. 3 blocks away, inside an abandoned building, a young man was huddled in the corner. A scar-faced man was wiping down a gun barrel. A man with glasses said worriedly, "Brother Hu, Xiaolu's injuries have gotten worse again. If we still can't find medicine, he probably won't make it." The scar-faced man known as Brother Hu nodded. The food in this area had already been completely picked clean. Medicine was even more out of reach. But just then, a tempting aroma drifted in. "Brother Hu, someone's cooking noodles outside." "Shut up," his reason told him. This was definitely a trap. In the apocalypse, anyone who dared cook out in the open was either insane or a hunter with overwhelming strength. But their bodies, already tortured by hunger, kept growling in waves. "Find it, eat it." The man with glasses was getting anxious too. "Brother Hu, we're running out of time. If we get there too late, there won't even be any broth left." Brother Hu knew better than anyone that if this kept up, the 3 of them would starve to death sooner or later. In the end, a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. They moved through street after street and spotted a small convenience store. A huge electric cooker was sitting right at the entrance. The pot was filled with instant noodles and ham sausages, and you were leaning casually against the doorframe. A trap. This had to be a trap. The 3 of them swallowed hard, but didn't dare step forward. Just then, he saw that behind the abandoned vehicle across from him, there was a man hiding in ambush. The others noticed him too. Brother Hu quickly made a gesture for everyone to stay quiet. Brother Hu calmed down, and soon spotted more people lying in wait. There was a blurry figure in the second-floor window on the left, and a metallic glint behind the trash pile in the alley on the right. At least 4 groups, like them, had been drawn in by the smell. Of course, you inside the hall knew that quite a few people had gathered nearby. Everyone, after watching for so long, aren't you hungry? Your voice wasn't loud, but every person hiding nearby heard it. But there was no response at all. You fished a piece of sausage out of the pot and stuffed it into your mouth. Business is built on goodwill. I've got noodles and water here, and plenty of sausage to fill you up. The man behind the abandoned car finally couldn't hold back and spoke. What is the price? Gold or crystal cores? Everyone was stunned for a moment. Crystal cores made sense. They were real hard currency. But in the apocalypse, gold wasn't even worth as much as a steel plate. At that moment, an angry shout came from behind the trash pile. Damn it, this punk is messing with us. He never planned to trade. Let's kill him together. We'll split what is in the pot evenly. As soon as he said that, the atmosphere instantly turned even stranger. Everyone was thinking fast. But you kept eating your noodles without even looking up. You can try, but let me make this clear first. Anyone who makes a move will lose the right to trade, and can only watch helplessly as others eat noodles and drink the soup. The man behind the trash pile couldn't hold back any longer. Damn it, I don't buy this. He pulled out a shotgun, and 2 more men came out from behind him, holding a machete and a steel pipe. Everyone was waiting for someone to make the first move and test you. The man pulled the trigger without hesitation. But when the bullet was 2.5 meters from the convenience store, it hit an invisible wall. From start to finish, you didn't even flinch. You even fished out another sausage and stuffed it into your mouth. The entire square fell into an eerie silence. His 2 companions with the machete and steel pipe also froze in place. Just then, the man behind the abandoned car seemed to realize something. Since physical attacks don't work, what about non-physical attacks? An invisible wave gathered in his palm. An invisible burst of psychic force shot toward you. This was his ability, Psychic Pierce. But when that psychic blast hit the convenience store, it didn't even cause the slightest ripple. At that moment, everyone understood. Inside the small hall, you were invincible. Even Tiger Bro's underling was already drenched in cold sweat. He was extremely relieved that he hadn't acted on impulse just now. You finally finished the noodles in your mouth. Then you looked toward the man behind the trash pile. I said it before. Anyone who makes a move will lose the right to trade. Does anyone still want to try? The area fell into deathly silence once again, just as the tense standoff was about to drive everyone crazy. The rhythmic click of high heels came closer and closer. Everyone looked toward the source of the sound. It was Nightingale. Tiger Bro recognized the woman. Or rather, in these ruins, any survivor who had lived long enough had heard of Nightingale, a top-awakened fighter who used fire as her weapon. What is she doing here? You've really caused quite a stir. There are always people who have to learn the hard way. I suggest you all put away those thoughts you shouldn't be having. Forget the scrap metal in your hands. Even I couldn't damage this store in the slightest. The whole square fell silent once again. Tiger Bro took a deep breath and slowly walked out. He spread his hands open to show that he had no weapon. The people hiding in the other corners also started showing themselves one by one. Nightingale stopped paying attention to the others. She pulled several items from her belt. 3 gleaming gold bars. Each one weighed a kilo. I want cookies, canned food, and water. Any food that is easy to carry and store. For a top hunter, those ready-to-eat processed foods were the more practical choice. You liked doing business with smart people. Soon, you brought out compressed biscuits, luncheon meat, canned food, and bottled water. A deal was easily completed in front of everyone. Nightingale took the food. Then he turned and disappeared into the darkness. Everyone's attention shifted back to you. This time, there was no more testing or killing intent. Only the purest desire remained. Now, it is your turn. You all understand the rules, right? Gold or crystal cores for food. Except for the guy guarding the door, of course. The man finally couldn't hold on any longer. He crawled and stumbled over to you. Boss, I was wrong. I really was wrong. Please, just give me a bite to eat. Even a sip of soup is enough. The 2 companions behind him also dropped to their knees and begged for mercy. The survivors around them felt no sympathy, only relief that they hadn't acted impulsively just now. I said anyone who made a move loses their chance. After saying that, you stopped paying them any attention. Your gaze swept across everyone there. Who else wants to trade? Brother Who pulled out a crystal core and held it out to you. With a thought, the crystal core dropped into your pocket. You didn't say anything else, and simply turned around and took out 3 large bowls. You filled them to the brim with noodles and ham sausage. Brother Who held the bowl of noodles and felt a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. The 3 of them immediately buried their faces in the bowls and scarfed the food down. Once someone took the first step, The people behind them could no longer hold back. No, boss, I'll trade. Me too. I have crystal cores. The man who had attacked you earlier also came up to you. He silently took out 2 crystal cores and didn't dare look you in the face. You took them without expression and gave him a bowl too. Once trading started, there was no stopping it. Some people took out gold jewelry, while others took out crystal cores of different sizes. Before long, more than a dozen crystal cores were piled up under your counter, and the big pot of noodles was gradually running low. But just then, the 3 men from earlier fell into complete despair. If I don't get to eat, then none of you are eating either. He immediately lunged at a scrawny survivor. Noodles and broth spilled all over the floor. The other survivors who were eating all stopped too. With a cold, furious stare, they looked at the madman who had broken the rules. You stopped eating your noodles too, and watched the farce unfold. Suddenly, a burst of fire shot out. He didn't even have time to let out a scream before his whole body turned to ash. His 2 companions met the same fate as well. In less than 3 seconds, the 3 of them completely vanished from this world. Nightingale slowly stepped out of the darkness. I hate people who break the rules. You took a can of Coke from the freezer and tossed it to Nightingale. You said nothing. You just kept stirring the noodles in the pot. The transaction went on in complete harmony. Brother Hu and the other 2 had already finished their noodles. They even drank every last drop of the broth. More and more people poured in from every corner of the ruins. The shelves in the convenience store were emptying at an astonishing speed. No one complained about the prices, and no one caused any trouble. In the end, you sold out everything in the store. Nightingale tossed aside the empty Coke can in her hand. She walked up to you. You made a fortune. When are you coming back next time? I don't know. Nightingale gave you a long look. Then she turned and disappeared into the darkness. After everyone left, the whole square fell completely silent. With a thought, you opened the dimensional warehouse. There were more than 100 kilograms of gold inside. There were also 33 crystal cores. Although devouring crystal cores brought intense pain, you didn't hesitate for even a second. You swallowed them all in one gulp. This time, it wasn't intense pain, but an unimaginable feeling of being torn apart from the inside. If you hadn't been inside the convenience store, you figured that surge of energy would have ripped you to pieces instantly. Amid the extreme pain, you absorbed the last bit of energy. When you opened your eyes again, you saw an insect on the ceiling. Its wings were beating at an abnormally slow pace. You heard the low growls in the zombies' throats outside the door. You could smell the stench of blood mixed with the earthy smell of soil. Your senses had been enhanced to an unbelievable level. You reached out toward the empty space beside the shelf and clenched your hand. With a slight tremble, the shelf slowly floated up into the air. This wasn't the power of dimensional storage, but telekinesis. You immediately summoned the system screen. Awakened ability, first level dimensional storage. Current capacity, 1,000 cubic meters. Awakened ability. Telekinetic control can manipulate objects weighing up to 50 kilograms from a distance. You actually awakened a second ability. For the rest of the time, you calmly waited for the countdown to end. As the twisting sensation came over you again, you returned to your original world. The strange smell of rust and decay disappeared. In its place was the fresh scent of soil mixed with grass. Dimensional travel complete. Current world Earth. Time until the next jump from Earth, 12 hours. It was still before dawn. You went back to the folding bed and slept for a few hours. 9 a.m. You arrived at an old shop in the antique market. Boss, do you buy gold? The owner asked about the purity and where it came from. You said nothing. Instead, you took out 2 gold bars. The dull thud made the owner sit up straight, right away. The owner spent more than 10 minutes inspecting them before finally looking up. Good stuff. One price, $580,000. $700,000. Kid, that is too high. I'm taking a risk here, and I still have people to pay off. $700,000. The owner was silent for a full half minute. Then your account received a transfer of $700,000. After leaving the market, you immediately called the debt collector. Hello, who is this? Xiao Guo. Xiao Guo, so you finally decided to call. What did you get the money together? That is right. The abandoned number 3, cement factory on the west side of the city. Bring the money at 3 this afternoon. Come alone. At 3 in the afternoon, at the cement factory. Brother Biao had 7 or 8 lackeys standing behind him. Seeing that you actually dared to come alone, he spat out the cigarette butt in his mouth. Where is the money? Where is the IOU? Brother Biao broke into a grin. Prices have gone up a lot lately. My boys have to eat too. Then he held up 5 fingers. 500,000. I'll burn the IU right in front of you. You hate people who break the rules. I was going to pay you back 350,000. But now, I'm only paying 200,000. Your voice wasn't loud, but everyone there heard it clearly. Brother Biao's face froze. He couldn't believe what he'd just heard. How much did you say? 200,000, not a cent more. A lackey beside him immediately grabbed a steel pipe and swung it at you. But the bloodbath everyone expected never happened. Just 4 inches from you, it stopped. You casually caught it with one hand. The thug went flying like he'd been hit by a truck. His agonized scream echoed through the entire cement plant. Brother Biao finally snapped out of his shock. Get him. But no matter how many there were, they couldn't withstand a few elbow strikes from you. Before long, several thugs were sprawled out in front of Brother Biao, their whole bodies trembling violently. Not from anger, but from fear. Don't come any closer. I'm telling you, my boss is Brother Chang. Brother Biao hurriedly pulled out a stack of papers. Right in front of Brother Biao, you counted out 200,000. It was supposed to be 350,000, but now it is worth only 200,000. Then you tore up the IOU and turned to leave. That matter was settled for the time being. You still had something more important to do. You went to the used car market. Not long after, you drove a used van to the largest food wholesale market. You walked into the wholesale store. Before the clerk could even speak, you said, "Hello, I'd like 200 cases of instant noodles, 100 cases of sausages, 200 cases of compressed biscuits, and 100 cases of canned beef, 500 cases of bottled water." Although they were shocked by the size of the order, but they still got everything ready for you pretty quickly. Why worry about all that? The one paying is the boss. It took you a full day to move all the goods out. There were still 2 hours left before the dimensional crossing. In yesterday's first trade, a lot of the gold was gathered from the ruins at the last minute. To maximize profits, you had to rely on volume and work with different strongholds, and have them collect the gold. Feeling the power inside your body gave you a sense of distance from your past. In the remaining 2 hours, you planned to have a good meal and say goodbye to your former self. So you drove to the most luxurious restaurant in the city. Compared to the luxury cars at the entrance, your van looked completely out of place. Even the valet thought you were there to steal a parking spot. "Sir, here at our establishment." But you simply pulled out a gold nugget the size of a soybean and handed it to the valet, telling him to park your car properly. "If you don't, I'll break your legs." The moment the gold nugget landed in his hand, that heavy weight made the valet freeze on the spot. You didn't even look at him. You just walked straight into the restaurant. The soft lighting and well-dressed guests made everything feel so elegant and unhurried. It was the complete opposite of the apocalyptic world from before. Just as you were looking at the menu, a woman's voice called out from nearby. "Xiao Guo." The voice belonged to your ex-girlfriend Zhang Qian. The man beside her was the rich heir Wang Hao. Wang Hao was stunned for a moment, then put an arm around Zhang Qian's waist and walked toward you. "Well, if it isn't Xiao Guo, what? Did your convenience store shut down? Are you here applying for a dishwashing job? A single steak here costs 3,800. Your monthly salary wouldn't even cover one bite. Too noisy. Tell your head chef to decide what to serve, whatever he is best at." Wang Hao felt like he'd punched a pillow. Being completely ignored like this made him feel awful. So he raised his voice again. "Are you deaf? I'm talking to you." But your face still showed no expression. Zhang Chen suddenly felt like you were a complete stranger. Hearing the commotion, the restaurant manager hurried over. "Sir, please calm down. Please don't disturb the other guests." When Wang Hao saw the manager, he got even more full of himself. "Manager Zhou, you came at the perfect time. So your restaurant lets just anyone in now. Letting someone like this sit here is dragging down your restaurant's class." Manager Zhou, of course, knew Wang Hao. Although he was the son of some local real estate tycoon, he noticed how unusually calm you were. So he stayed polite but firm. "Mr. Wang, our restaurant treats every guest equally. Do we have a private room?" Manager Zhou immediately gave you a 90-degree bow. "Mr. Xiaoguo, we're deeply sorry. We failed to serve you properly and ruined your dining experience." He immediately had a new server escort you to a private room. From beginning to end, you didn't even look Wang Hao in the eye. Wang Hao still wanted to say something, but Manager Zhou cut him off. "Mr. Wang, please stop causing a scene at once, or I'll have no choice but to call security and ask you and this lady to leave." In the private room, all kinds of exquisite dishes were served. Back then, you weren't even worthy of eating them. Now that you'd tried them, you realized they were nothing special. After the meal, you returned to the convenience store. At that moment, there were 150 seconds left until the next traversal. When the time ran out, the city's noise quickly faded away, replaced by the dead silence of the apocalypse. The 12-hour traversal cooldown had also dropped to 11 hours. You guessed that as the number of traversals increased, you'd eventually be able to travel freely between the apocalypse and the real world. You could feel many eyes on you from all around. The survivors from last time had already spread news of the mysterious convenience store all over. The people coming now were no longer starving stragglers, but scouts from organized groups. After about 10 minutes, a figure walked toward the convenience store. The man stopped at your door with a rifle slung over his back. My name is Scorpion. I'm here on behalf of Rock Stronghold. I'd like to talk about a deal with you. Our stronghold needs a large amount of supplies. Food, water, medicine, weapons, ammo, we want it all. I don't sell weapons. There was no disappointment on Scorpion's face, as if he'd already expected that answer. He pulled out a gold bar from his pocket and set it on the table. This is the deposit. We want to build a long-term partnership with you. We hope you can give us a better price. My prices are the same for everyone. Just then, several faint ripples appeared in the shadows behind him. Scorpion raised a hand in a calming gesture. We're sincere about this. You said nothing. Instead, you reached out toward the canned meat on the shelf without touching it. It slowly floated over to the counter. Scorpion's pupils suddenly shrank. Before seeing your telekinesis, Scorpion had thought your only advantage was that impenetrable defense. He didn't expect you to be a powerful awakened one yourself. 1 case of canned food. 1 gold bar. We need an exact number. We need to know exactly how much stock you have. That was also one of the reasons for this visit. You let out a soft chuckle and snapped your fingers. A small mountain of bottled water appeared out of thin air on the ground. The sight made Scorpion's brain freeze for a full 2.5 seconds. Is this enough? If not, you snapped your fingers again. Another small mountain appeared, this time made of compressed biscuits. Scorpion swallowed hard. The man in front of him not only had telekinetic powers, he also had spatial powers. How do you set the price? I told you already 1 gold bar. For 1 case of canned food, we'll take it all. But we'll need time to prepare. Gold can be traded for goods. As for the scattered items on the shelves, if you want to buy in bulk, you'll have to pay a different price. Qinghe can't be used for trade. It is the source of an awakened one's power. It is the foundation of the stronghold's existence. That is your problem, not mine. The moment you finished speaking, the 2 small mountains vanished out of thin air. From start to finish, the leverage in this deal has been in your hands. If Scorpion refuses to trade, then, once the other outposts agree to it, Pan Shi will eventually be unable to hold out and will completely fall apart. We need a specific exchange rate. 100 gold bars plus 10 crystal cores for water. As for the biscuits, the price is doubled. Scorpion's fists clenched tightly at his sides. This isn't just an outrageous price anymore. This is outright robbery. Scorpion took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. I need to go back and report this gold bar to the leader. Consider it your fee for asking directions. You nodded and pocketed the gold bar. Scorpion said nothing. He slowly stepped back into the darkness. You went back to the counter and calmly wiped down the already spotless countertop. Another 10 minutes passed. 3 figures emerged. One was a middle-aged man wearing glasses. 2 soldiers followed behind him. Hello, boss. My surname is G. Everyone calls me Professor G. I'm from the lighthouse shelter. You said nothing. You just quietly watched him. From an economic perspective, your current model can't be sustained for long. Once an outpost loses a large number of crystal cores, it is bound to collapse. When that happens, who will buy your goods? That just makes the remaining crystal cores even more valuable now. The smile on Professor G's face completely froze. You don't care at all about any system or any future, because you alone hold the power to set the prices. Just then, Nightingale stepped out of the darkness. A crystal core dropped onto your counter. You didn't say a word. You took out a self-heating rice meal, a can of beef, and 2 bottles of mineral water. Nightingale took the items and turned to leave. The whole exchange happened in silence. His so-called rational analysis had turned into a complete joke. 100 gold bars plus 10 crystal cores. Water is available for that exchange, but it'll cost extra. The nonsense you just spewed wasted 3 minutes of my time. So now it'll cost you 15 crystal cores. We'll trade. The man in front of you might not be the strongest awakened in the wasteland, but his convenience store was unbeatable. Professor G pulled a military communicator from inside his coat. Bring 100 gold bars and 15 crystal cores. About 20 minutes later, the roar of engines came from the distance. 2 metal cases were placed in front of you. One was packed full of gold bars, and the other held 15 crystal cores. You also tossed case after case of water beyond the boundary. After the trade was complete, several figures slowly emerged from the darkness. Scorpion was back. There was also a team of 20 behind him. Almost instinctively, both sides raised their guns at each other. We brought what you asked for. Several cases were opened. Inside were not only gold bars, but also 20 crystal cores. 10 more than you asked for. Scorpion made his attitude clear in the most direct way possible. Professor G's face looked worse than a dead man's. It is the apocalypse already, and you're still trying to one-up your dad. With a casual wave of your hand, you took out a huge pile of compressed biscuits and several cases of canned beef from your dimensional storage. These are for you. Scorpion's breathing caught for a moment. He had bet right. He immediately gave you a deep bow. Then he looked at Professor G. Panshi came here to trade. We don't want any unnecessary trouble. But if Lighthouse wants to start something here, we'll go all the way with you. As soon as he finished speaking, the guns behind Scorpion were cocked all at once. Someone from Lighthouse forced out a few words through clenched teeth. We're leaving. You quietly watched it all. Interesting. One was Lighthouse, built on technology and knowledge, and the other was Panshi, where strength and discipline ruled. After he left, Scorpion bowed to you once more and quickly withdrew as well. From these 2 deals, you gained another 100 kilograms of gold. The silence didn't last long. This time, 3 convoys drove in from different directions. The snarls of zombies came from all around. The 3 factions almost all gave the order to prepare for battle at the same time. On one side was the burst fire of heavy machine guns and assault rifles. On the other were fireballs and ice spikes unleashed by the awakened. After the last zombie was taken down with a shot to the head, the square once again fell into a brief calm. Boss, we from Battle Axe have something to say. We from Ark have come in good faith as well. Start lining up over there. Battle Axe is one of the real powers in this Eastern District. Since when did we ever have to stand in line? Boss, what do you mean by this? We came in good faith to clear out the zombies outside. I said, line up. If Battle Axe's people don't follow the rules, then I won't sell you anything. Battle Axe still carries some weight in this Eastern District. Being friends with us won't hurt you. I don't care whether I have one more friend or one less. Either follow the rules, or leave and get in line. What would that do to Battle Axe's reputation? The bald man let out a low growl, as if he had made up his mind, and sharply waved at the men behind him. Bring it over. I'm buying first today, no matter what. 2 Battle Axe members carried a heavy metal case forward. Someone broke the rules. This deal is over. With that, you waved your hand and put all the supplies into the dimensional warehouse. In an instant, the whole convenience store was completely empty. Both factions looked at the bald man. The burly man's face was already full of rage. I came with gold and crystal cores. That was me showing you respect. Don't mistake my respect for weakness. When Battle Axe speaks in the Eastern District, no one dares say no. Who the hell do you think you are? I hate barking dogs. Open fire, blow his damn shop to pieces. A hail of bullets instantly poured toward the convenience store, but every one of them was blocked by an invisible shield. Not only will I never sell Battle Axe another bit of supplies, I'll also offer 100 cases of canned beef for your life. All the Battle Axe members froze in place. Then you raised your hand and waved it. 100 cases of canned beef appeared on the ground. At once, everyone's attention shifted to the burly bald man. So you're all planning to rebel, huh? I'm the 3rd boss of the war captives. Ark is taking this bounty. Hive's taking it too. What about you? You want to betray me too? The war captives members looked at each other. No one dared meet his eyes. In the apocalypse, loyalty is the cheapest thing there is. Suddenly, a blade stabbed into the bald brute's chest. The one who attacked was his deputy. Why his deputy's face was completely expressionless. 3rd boss, the brothers have to eat too. Then he turned to the people in the convenience store. If we quit, this deal belongs to us, the war captives. I already said, I won't sell the war captives another bit of supplies. They killed their own 3rd boss with their own hands. But in the end, they got nothing. If these people are no longer war captives members, I'm just not doing business with the war captives. As for everyone else, they don't fall under that. My name is Bai Lu, the supply director of Ark Shelter. I now formally invite you, on behalf of Ark, to join Hive. And any capable friends are welcome too. The deputy's mind raced. We're willing to join Ark. The dozen or so people behind him all lowered their weapons in unison, showing their surrender. Leaning against the counter, you casually raised a hand. That small mountain of 100 cases of canned beef came to a steady stop in front of the deputy. Meanwhile, the deputy was quick to get the hint. He walked up to Bai Lu and said, "Director Bai Lu, thank you for ARC's protection. We're willing to offer you these cans as a meeting gift." The people from Hive watched with envy, but they didn't dare think anything else. This time, no one dared voice any objections. Bai Lu stood behind the counter. The gaunt man from Hive also silently lined up behind Bai Lu. "What do you want?" "Compressed biscuits, water, and instant noodles." As soon as he finished speaking, 2 boxes were opened. Inside were 50 gold bars and 20 crystal cores. After the deal was done, he didn't hurry off. "Boss, do you take advance orders here?" "Yes. What antibiotics do you want?" "The more cold medicine, the better. Go back and make a list. Then, bring the deposit. Next time, I'll bring the goods to you." Next up was Shui Shou from Beehive. Like Bai Lu, the man had ordered medicine, as well as cigarettes and alcohol. After the deal was done, some people with odds and ends started trading. Some had gold jewelry, and some had low-grade crystal cores. But then, someone brought out something new to trade. It was a car battery. The battery energy density and cycle life in this world were actually nearly twice as advanced as those in your world. You suddenly realized that all this time, you'd been treating this world like an ATM for crystal cores and gold, while overlooking the fact that before the disaster hit, this world already had its own tech tree. You turned and took out 2 loaves of bread and a bottle of water, along with 2 ham sausages. The survivors around you were all stunned. "That is a lot. From now on, I'll take this kind of battery too." At the back of the crowd, several loners were quietly forming a circle around him. He held the heavy food in his arms, his body shaking violently. This food wasn't hope. It was a death sentence. "I have something to ask him. Whoever dares make a move. I don't mind trading a few more crates of canned food for his head." At that moment, the few loners suddenly froze. After all, Axe's third boss was still sleeping not far away. "What is your name?" "Zhou Yuan." "Where did this battery come from?" "Skyvault Technology Park. I used to be a battery engineer at Skyvault Technology. This Thor 7 was our company's flagship product. When the disaster broke out, we had just finished a batch for an order. There are at least tens of thousands of finished batteries left in the company warehouse. But the thousands of employees in the park all turned into zombies." You nodded. "If you use the gold you have on hand to recreate a production line, then with the Thor 7's performance specs, it could definitely spark an energy revolution in the original world. Assuming the production line is already gone, can you get the complete manufacturing data for this kind of battery, including all the raw materials, formulas, and processing methods? The servers in the park have the complete files. As long as we have the servers, I can get the data out." The way you looked at him completely changed. How is he just a LOP engineer? He is clearly a walking key to a treasure vault. We'll need the help of the local big shots for this. With that in mind, you looked at Zhou Yuan. "From now on, you work for me. Your job is to identify and evaluate all the tech products I get. In return, I'll provide you with food and water." An uncontrollable surge of joy rose in Zhou Yuan's heart. What does it mean to rise to the top overnight? This is what it means to rise to the top overnight. But some survivors were quick to catch on too. If Zhou Yuan could turn his life around with a single battery, why couldn't they? For a while, a gold rush swept through the survivors. A damaged motherboard from a military drone. A sealed refrigerated case for biological samples. Even half of a burned academic journal. You refused none of it, and had Zhou Yuan appraise everything. The gold rush went on for quite a while. Just then, 2 glaring headlights tore through the darkness. Then came the steady, powerful roar of an engine. Bai Lu and the thin man surnamed Shui got out almost at the same time. Several crates filled with gold and crystal cores sat on the ground. "This is the deposit from our archive. Deposit received. I'll have your goods ready for the next deal." Bai Lu and the thin man surnamed Shui bowed at the same time. They were extremely humble. Even though the deal was done, neither of them had any intention of leaving. Their eyes were fixed on Zhou Yuan and the pile of junk on the ground. Your gaze stayed calm and unreadable. There is a Skydome Technology Park in the northern ruins. There are tens of thousands of finished Thor 7 batteries there, but more than 5,000 zombies are holed up there. That number is enough to swallow up anything. "Boss, you mean? I'm giving you a chance to make a fortune. I'll put up the money and you'll provide the manpower. Help me clear out the tech park. Bring back the server mainframes inside completely intact." Bai Lu and Huang Feng's minds were both racing. The risk was off the charts, but the payoff would be just as huge. More importantly, This is a chance to build close ties with this mysterious shop owner. Hive is in. Our Hive, Ripper Squad, has the strongest solo assault capability in all the ruins. We can guarantee the mission gets done. Huangfeng, don't get ahead of yourself. ARC has the best technical team in the ruins. Hacking, dismantling, transport. Only we can make sure it is foolproof. We'll take the Sky Dome Tech Park mission. Rock is in. We have the most awakened. We guarantee we'll bring the server back intact. What a joke. 5,000 zombies. Once Rock's awakened burn through their stamina, how many can they really kill? Going there would be suicide. Scorpion, this isn't something brute force can solve. Without our technical staff, you won't even make it through the tech park's front gate. Tiankong Tech's chief power engineer, Wang Chongming, is with our lighthouse. No one knows that place better than he does. As soon as he said that, Bai Lu, Huangfeng, and Scorpion's expressions changed drastically. So Lighthouse was holding a trump card like this. Enough. I don't care if it is Ark, Rock, or anyone else. I only care about results. If anything happens to the server, or if I don't get what I want, then none of you should expect to trade for anything from me again. Not even a single grain of rice. As soon as he said that, the representatives of all four sides went pale. Your words were so blunt, so unforgiving. Rock agreed to cooperate. Once the first faction agreed, the other three quickly followed. The four strongest factions in the ruins formed an unprecedented alliance. A formidable force made up of nearly 100 awakened and several hundred elite soldiers was born. He is going with you. Bring him back without a single hair out of place. Don't worry, boss. We guarantee Mr. Zhou Yuan's safety. There is one more potential risk in this operation, the prisoners of war. Their third in command died here. Lei Bao is the kind of man who always gets revenge. He'll never let this go. The prisoners may not be as strong as they are, but if they're set on causing trouble, while they're locked in battle with thousands of zombies, even the slightest disruption could lead to irreversible consequences. Everyone's attention turned to you again. 1 prisoner 10 cases of canned beef for an ordinary member. 1 minor leader is worth 100 cases. As for Lei Bao, their boss, I'll trade 1,000 cases of canned food for him, whether it is you or any drifter in the ruins. Whoever brings his head to me gets the canned food. The 4 factions all gasped. The risk Bai Lu had mentioned wasn't a risk at all to this man. The square fell deathly silent. The representatives of the 4 factions no longer dared entertain even the slightest ulterior motive. Today, it could be the prisoners. Tomorrow, it could be any one of them. Once the bounty was issued, there was no room left for negotiation. Bai Lu, Huangfeng, Scorpion, and Professor J. These 4 people who could shake the ruins with just a stomp of the foot didn't waste another word. They assigned the tasks as quickly as possible. Then each quickly left in their vehicles with their men. Before leaving, Bai Lu specifically walked over to Zhou Yuan. Mr. Zhou Yuan, please come with us. We'll need you to give us more details about the tech park on the way. Zhou Yuan instinctively glanced at the convenience store. Only after getting your nod did he get into the vehicle with ARC's people. After you closed the door, you didn't hurry back to the other world. With a thought, you took out all the money from the trade earlier that day. Without the slightest hesitation, you grabbed a handful and stuffed it into your mouth. The familiar pain hit again. After waiting for the last trace of energy to be fully absorbed, you suddenly opened your eyes. Awakened 1 Xiaoguo. Awakened Ability 1. Dimensional storage, current capacity, 3,000 cubic meters. Awakened Ability 2. Telekinesis can remotely control objects weighing up to 200 kilograms. It can also reshape and accelerate objects. It was no longer just simple remote retrieval. Your eyes landed on the metal shelf in the corner. This time, you didn't make a grabbing motion, or even raise your hand. With just one glance, the metal shelf was instantly compressed into an ultra-dense metal ball. There were 12 minutes left before dimensional travel. It was time to go back. The appearance of the Thor No. 7 battery was like a seed that planted a forest called ambition in your heart. You are no longer content to be a simple interdimensional middleman. In this safe, modern world, you were going to build a business empire of your own. Those hundreds of tons of gold had to be turned into working capital as soon as possible. But there was no way to move that much gold through normal channels. A name surfaced in your mind. Brother Biao, that loan sharking thug, had to have ties to the city's gray market. Having him make the connections was the most efficient and safest option for now. Once the money was in place, it would be time to stock up like crazy and completely fill the 3,000 cubic meter warehouse and the convenience store. Then you would register a tech company and set up the basic framework first. to get ready for the technical data from Skydome Tech Park. Your thoughts were incredibly clear. Every step pointed toward that massive goal. At that moment, dimensional travel was ready. With a thought, the familiar feeling of weightlessness wrapped around your whole body again. Dimensional travel complete. Current world Earth. Cool down until the next travel, 11 hours. Outside the window were the city's neon lights and busy traffic. Compared to the silent ruins from just seconds ago, it felt like two completely different universes. That extreme contrast made you even more certain that you had to hold on tight to this power. Back on Blue Star, you didn't leave the convenience store right away. Instead, you lay down on the bed. The surge in mental power had greatly reduced your need for sleep, but a few hours of rest would bring your body back to peak condition. When you opened your eyes again, it was 11 a.m. After a quick lunch, you called Brother Biao. "Hello, who is this?" "Xiao Guo, Brother Guo. What can I do for you?" "I have a batch of goods I want to sell." "Brother Guo, excuse me for asking, but is this stuff legit?" "There is some risk, but not much. At that same cement factory from last time." "Come alone." Got it. I'll be there on time." Soon, it was 3 in the afternoon. Still at that same cement factory. But this time, you were the one sitting on the sofa. Brother Biao arrived as promised. In front of you, he didn't even dare breathe too loudly. "Brother Guo, these are the goods you want moved." You pulled a gold bar out of the sack. Brother Biao's pupils narrowed slightly. A 500-gram gold bar was valuable, but any bigger gold shop could handle it. Just as he was thinking that, you pulled the sack open, and it was packed full of gold bars. Brother Biao froze in place. His mind went completely blank. It wasn't just one bar, it was a whole pile. 20 bars in total. Each one weighed 500 grams. Brother Biao started trembling uncontrollably. 20 bars, 500 grams each. That was 10 kilograms. Did they rob a gold vault? Or just hit an armored truck outright? Then he thought about what you'd said on the phone about there not being much risk. This is what you call not much risk. The second anyone touches this stuff, it is basically a one-way trip to the execution ground. A case this huge, he wouldn't even dare dream about it. "Guo, Brother Guo, you're going to get me killed. Can you handle it or not?" Brother Biao fell silent. He really wanted to say he didn't dare take it, that he wasn't worthy of taking it. He didn't dare look you in the eye. He had already decided you were a truly vicious man. You can't even handle this little bit of gold. You can't even handle this little bit of gold, and you're supposed to be a loan shark. You can't even handle something this small? Master Guo, for a case this big, I really don't dare touch it. Relax, this gold is clean. It is not tied to any case. I just can't be bothered to move them one by one myself. You know what I mean? Master Guo, can I make a call and ask around with the guys on the street? You waved your hand. Brother Biao felt like he'd been granted a pardon. He didn't even dare step aside to make the call. He even turned on speakerphone. "Hello, Biaosi, what is up? Has anything happened around here lately? Involving gold?" The person on the other end sounded a little confused, but still answered honestly. "What case could there be? There are cameras all over the streets now. Who dare mess with that? You struck it rich, kid, thinking about buying gold." After getting the answer, Brother Biao seemed completely reassured. He hung up, and the way he looked at you completely changed. "Master Guo, there is no way I can handle all this merchandise by myself. But I know someone who can." You waved your hand again. Brother Biao shockily dialed another number. "What is it?" "Sister Sue, it is me, Biaosi. I've got a big shot here, with a batch of gold on hand. He wants to sell it, and it is a lot, about 10 kilograms. After hearing that, the silence on the other end dragged on even longer. Half an hour later, the usual place, I'll inspect the goods myself. You arrived at a private club. Sister Sue was a woman wearing a chapao. She gestured for you to sit. You didn't stand on ceremony either. You casually sat down in the seat. Then, you tossed the sack onto the table. The woman called Sister Sue didn't stop pouring tea. Only after sliding the tea in front of you did she slowly speak. "My friend, how should I address you?" "Mr. Guo, may I see the goods?" You nodded. After opening the bag, 10 gold bars lay there quietly. Sister Sue handled them with expert skill. After examining them for a long while, she murmured, 999 pure gold full weight too. Standard large gold bars. Only then did she look up at Mr. Guo. "Such a large shipment, where did it come from?" You picked up your teacup and took a light sip. "Mr. Guo, it is not that I don't trust you. It is just that this business has its rules. 10 kilos is no small amount. I have to get a clear answer. As she spoke, she watched your expression. But you said nothing. You just glanced at Biao-ji. Biao-ji immediately got the message and hurried out. Then you took a gold bar out of the bag. With Sister Sue watching, you applied a little pressure. The gold bar was like putty in your hands. Someone with that kind of strength would have no reason to deal in a batch of dirty gold. She took a deep breath and named her price. 710 per gram for 10 kilos, that is 7 million. You didn't agree, but you didn't refuse either. What is the most you can move? A flicker of hesitation crossed Sister Sue's face. You were testing the limit of her entire network. Mr. Guo, if the goods are all this clean, I can move 50 kilos for you every month. So 35 million a month, too little. You slowly held up one finger. 100 kilos is a tenth of a ton. Sister Sue could no longer keep her composure. Mr. Guo, are you joking? 1 ton of gold at current market prices would mean nearly $1 billion in cash flow. Her operation simply couldn't handle something that big. Impossible. No private channel can move a ton of gold within a month. This isn't even just about money anymore. It is a direct challenge to the entire modern financial regulatory system, and cash flow in the hundreds of millions would definitely draw the attention of the authorities. That would be a huge problem. Of course, you'd already thought of that. So, what if I don't need all of it converted into cash? You mean an asset swap? I need an industrial park or a battery manufacturer. That unexpected answer left Sister Sue completely stunned. She hadn't expected you were moving gold, not for a life of luxury, but to build a real business. Someone who could crush a gold bar with his bare hands, someone who could produce a ton of gold every month, actually wanted to be an entrepreneur. This was no longer just a deal. It was a capital operation on a scale he couldn't even imagine. Mr. Lin, this is already completely beyond my authority. I need to report this to my superiors. You just waved your hand. I'm the boss. Suwan said, there is a huge deal, and the gold is clean with a large quantity. At that point, she glanced at you. For now, I only have 300 kilograms on hand. The other party can supply 1 ton a month. He currently has 300 kilograms in stock. After the call ended, Suwan went from leading the deal to being nothing more than a messenger. Mr. Guo, my boss wants to meet you in person. Tomorrow night at 7, same place. You nodded and pointed at the gold. Let's sell this batch first. As a show of good faith, we can offer 810 yuan per gram for this batch. In less than 5 minutes, 8 million was deposited into your account. After the deal was done, Suwan personally saw you off and stayed until you drove away in that van. After you left, Brother Biao came over with a flattering smile. Sister Sue, how did it go? As for Master Guo, from now on, anything involving Mr. Guo, don't ask a single question. Whatever he tells you to do, just do it. If anything goes wrong, no one will be able to protect you. Brother Biao felt a jolt in his heart. He nodded over and over like a pecking chick. After leaving, you didn't go back to the convenience store. Instead, you went to the wholesale center. When the salesperson from last time saw you, he immediately came out to greet you. Boss Lin, you're back. What do you need this time? Use this list. Multiply the quantity of every category by 10. The manager glanced at it. His hands trembled slightly. I'll make sure everything's fully taken care of. After paying the 2 million yuan for the goods, you made trip after trip to the industrial park, until more than half the dimensional warehouse was filled. You still had something even more important to do. A box of ordinary antibiotics, in that ruined world, was worth far more than gold. You drove to the city's wholesale medicine district. You didn't choose one of the big, polished storefronts. Instead, you walked into a small shop in an alley. After the middle-aged man in the shop glanced at you, no prescription or hospital purchasing license, no sale. But you simply pulled out your phone and showed him your balance. The long string of zeros reflected in the man's eyes. Amoxicillin, tourniquets, gauze, iodine solution, saline. However much you have, I'll take it all. The man's breathing stopped for a moment. Why are you buying so much? You just need to tell me whether you'll sell or not. In the end, he lowered his voice and took a deep breath. The storeroom's in the back. Follow me. Half an hour later, your car was packed full of boxes of medicine. Another $1 million+ payment went out. Next stop, Wujin City. Diesel generators. I want 20 of this model. Solar charging panels. And the matching batteries. I'll take the whole lot. Wrenches, pliers, welding machines. Right, don't unpack them. Move them box by box. Last stop was the gas station. Regular channels wouldn't let you fill that much. Luckily, Brother Biao gave you an address, a private fuel depot hidden on the outskirts of town. When the owner heard you wanted several hundred barrels of gasoline and diesel, he practically wanted to call you his godfather on the spot. The several million you spent this time would pay you back 100-fold, even 1,000-fold in another world. At this point, there was still half an hour left on the dimensional travel cooldown. But you decided to wait a bit first. After all, if you traveled over now, it would be nighttime. You planned to adjust the timing. It would be best to travel over during the day. Morning came. You opened your eyes. It was exactly 6 in the morning. A familiar feeling of weightlessness instantly spread through your body. Dimensional travel complete. Current world apocalypse era. Next travel cooldown, 10 hours. The moment you open the door, a crowd of loners rushed over. Boss, I've got a battery here. Take a look. In his hand was a Thor 7 battery. The next second, the battery vanished. In its place were bread and bottled water. For the rest of the time, the survivors swarmed forward. This went on until 7 o'clock, when a slight tremor ran through the area. The 4 major factions of the ruins all got out of their vehicles together. Boss, we're ready. All technical staff and equipment are in place. The Hive scouts have already gone ahead. They're clearing obstacles along the way. Engineer Wang Chongming has confirmed the server's exact location. We can leave at any time. Have you all had breakfast? The sudden question caught Scorpion and the others off guard. Before they could answer, you gave a broad wave of your hand. A huge amount of instant noodles, self-heating rice, and canned food piled up into a mountain of supplies. The 4 of them swallowed hard. Even for them, getting enough to eat wasn't easy. As for eating well, that was even more out of reach. What are you all standing around for? It is from the boss. Go on. That shout was like lighting a fuse. The next moment, everyone lined up in an orderly way to get food. The soldiers' eyes instantly turned red. They stuffed food into their mouths in big bites. If even breakfast before departure was this generous, then if they really completed the mission, what would they get? Would they get meat with every meal? Just as everyone was enjoying the most lavish meal of the apocalypse, you made another move. Several more cardboard boxes hit the ground. This time, it wasn't food, but cigarettes. In the apocalypse, cigarettes were second only to crystal cores. As hard currency, hand them out. 2 packs for each regular soldier, and 1 carton for each awakened. These weren't ordinary supplies. This was a luxury for the soul. What you did was more effective than any pre-battle pep talk. It didn't just fill their stomachs. It also soothed their tense spirits. Just when everyone thought that was all, you raised your hand again. This time, it was several black cases marked with precise symbols. Professor G rushed over. He opened one of the cases. Inside were reconnaissance drones. The other cases held matching radios, anti-jamming, ultra-long battery life, thermal imaging. With these, we can avoid 90% of the danger ahead of time. Scorpion, Bailu, and Hornet gathered around. Their breathing grew heavy. In the past, they could only rely on scouts risking their lives to search the way ahead. And communication basically meant shouting. This was a total game changer. With everyone fed and rested, all the fighters were in peak mental condition. Move out. The roar of engines merged into a torrent of steel, making the ground itself tremble. The 4 major factions of the ruins rolled towards Skydome Tech Park. Bedrock's heavy trucks led the way, using their rams to tear through abandoned vehicles blocking the road with ease. Ark's convoy held the center in support. Inside her vehicle, Bailu used drones to monitor the surroundings, calmly coordinating each unit's route. Hive's motorcycles, led by Hornet, cruised along both flanks. Lighthouse's transport trucks followed steadily at the rear, protecting Professor G, the tech team, and the supplies. At that moment, a Hive scout's voice came through the radio. A small lion pack spotted 500 meters ahead, around 30 total. No special mutated variants detected. Bailu quickly gave the order. Arc Team 2, take them out. As soon as the order was given, several off-road vehicles broke away from the main force. Then the roof-mounted machine guns opened fire. A dense hail of bullets instantly tore the lion pack apart. The whole process was smooth and efficient, without a second wasted. Meanwhile, in the convenience store, you were leaning back on a folding bed, watching the monitor in front of you. The screen clearly showed the footage sent back by the drones. At that moment, the steel convoy stopped 1 kilometer from Skydome Tech Park. Skydome Tech Park was like a small city. 5-meter-high alloy walls stretched endlessly around it, and every 100 meters, there was a watchtower flashing red warning lights. The combat units quickly spread out and took up defensive positions. Meanwhile, Scorpion, Bailu, Hornet, and Professor G gathered together. their faces grim as they stared at the screen. Bai Lu zoomed in on the gate structure and said, "The main gate system is completely locked down. We'll need high explosives to blow it open." After hearing that, Scorpion said with a fierce look in his eyes, "Perfect. We'll lure every monster in the facility over here and take them all out. That'll save us from having to search for them one by one." Everyone agreed. So Bai Lu immediately began planning. They would build a fan-shaped defensive position centered on the gate. "We'll hold the breach and shred the entire undead horde coming through. Lighthouse handles the demolition. Hive handles security and cleanup. Bedrock holds the front line. Move out." As soon as the order was given, the four major factions sprang into action. The entire allied force moved like a finely tuned war machine. The fighters from Han Chi's stronghold set up the first line of defense in front of the gate. They also set up heavy machine guns aimed at the gate. Meanwhile, ARC personnel quickly set directional charges. Several Earth-type awakeners pressed their hands against the ground. At once, a deep rumble sounded. Then, the solid ground began to writhe and heave. Trenches appeared out of nowhere, forming a complex network of subzones. Before long, a crude but deadly defensive fortification had taken shape. The demolition experts placed high explosives on the alloy gate. Then they quickly pulled back. A moment later, a deafening blast rang out. In an instant, a huge breach appeared in the alloy gate. At that moment, the entire area fell into dead silence for several seconds. Suddenly, countless roars burst from the breach. Dense masses of zombies poured out through the breach and charged straight at the defensive positions. "Open fire." At Bai Lu's command, the heavy machine guns instantly opened up. The riflemen in the rear also began focused fire. The dense hail of bullets tore through the horde, but there were simply too many zombies. Countless zombies fell, but the horde kept charging. In no time, they reached the trenches at the front line. In just a few short seconds, the trenches were filled in with bodies. More zombies charged over on a bridge of corpses. Just then, the directional mines were triggered. Amid the massive explosions, a huge area was cleared out in an instant, but it was immediately filled again by a fresh black tide of roaring zombies. Then, he personally picked up a light machine gun and sprayed the horde like crazy. The rock soldiers behind him also held the line with everything they had. The monitor showed flesh and blood flying everywhere. Everything was under control. You watched it all with a blank expression. You raised a hand and used a drone to look over the entire tech park from above. The zombie horde inside was visibly starting to thin out. At that moment, Nightingale appeared at the corner of the street. A group of awakeners followed behind her. Everyone stared at the store's shelves, packed with goods. Their eyes were full of greed and desire. Nightingale, however, stayed perfectly calm. She looked straight at you and got right to the point. "I heard you're attacking Skyvault Tech Park. The people behind me and I can help." At that, your gaze swept over the group. Then the corner of your mouth curled into an amused smile. "Help, Bai Lu and Scorpion, are already enough." Nightingale's expression grew a little complicated after hearing that. She took a deep breath. "Whatever they can do, we can do too. We can do it even better." That immediately piqued your interest. So you pointed at the monitor in front of you and said, "See that gap? The zombies coming out of there are yours. As an advance payment, each of you can go to Bai Lu first and get 1 can of beef. Then, let me see if you're qualified to sit at the table." The Awakeners turned embarrassed and furious when they heard that. "You want us to risk our lives for 1 can of beef? What do you take us for, beggars?" The angry shouting rose one after another. Nightingale paid it no mind. She stared fixedly at you. "All of you, shut up. If you want to leave, get out now. If you want to stay, come with me to get the cans, then get to work." With that, she strode toward the tech park, leaving the Awakeners behind, staring at one another. A moment later, the scar-faced brute gritted his teeth and followed. Seeing that, the rest gradually followed behind. Inside the convenience store, you took it all in. A faint, cold smile curled at the corner of your mouth. What you needed wasn't a bunch of mercenaries who only cared about money, but a force that would stay loyal to you. Not long after, Nightingale showed up with more than a dozen awakened. Bai Lu frowned slightly when she saw them. Nightingale didn't waste any words. "Boss Guo's orders. That gap belongs to us now." Hearing that, Bai Lu didn't ask any more questions. She simply handed out a box of canned beef. Nightingale and the others took it without expression. Then they headed straight for the zombie horde without hesitation. Bai Lu watched this scene. Her expression complicated. She couldn't understand why you had sent this group of independents onto the battlefield. But she still pushed down her doubts and gave a new order. "Everyone, conserve ammunition. Extend firepower to both flanks." In an instant, the gunfire weakened. A deadly gap opened outside the defensive line. Countless zombies surged wildly toward the gap. Seeing this, the scar-faced brute let out a beast-like roar. He transformed into a savage beast, a humanoid monster over 2 meters tall, and charged straight into the zombie horde. More than a dozen zombies were sent flying instantly. The others sprang into action when they saw that. For a moment, all kinds of awakened abilities erupted across the battlefield. But the problem was quickly exposed. The awakened were all fighting on their own, with no coordination at all. Their attacks were wild but effective, but their defense was full of holes. From time to time, zombies slipped past their line. The soldiers could only shoot them down right away. Nightingale had been standing at the back of the group, watching coldly the whole time. Not until the team started showing signs of collapse did he finally make his move. He slowly raised his right hand. An eerie flaming lotus quietly bloomed in his palm, giving off a terrifying aura of destruction. Fall back. At his words, the awakened frantically retreated. The next second, Nightingale stepped forward and gently pushed the flaming lotus in his hand forward. The fire lotus flew from his hand. It drifted down lightly and landed in the center of the zombie horde. In an instant, it turned into a storm of fire. It completely swallowed up an area dozens of meters across. Hundreds of zombies were burned to ash in the intense heat. A moment later, the flames died away. Everyone stood there, frozen in shock. At that moment, you looked at the monitor and smiled. This Nightingale is interesting, strong enough, and level-headed. As for the others, they're nothing but a mob. As you thought it over, you noticed the zombies pouring out of the breach were starting to thin out. The zombies inside were almost cleared out too. Bailu and the others noticed it too. Morale on the battlefield instantly shot up. After several rounds of fire, the zombie horde was completely cut off. Then Bailu's voice rang out across the entire position. All units, move forward. Maintain a defensive formation. Enter the park and secure the central plaza. Right after that, engines roared to life again. The steel convoy quickly pushed into the tech park. Inside the park, asphalt roads ran in every direction. Futuristic buildings towered everywhere. Before long, Professor G successfully connected to the park's local network. He projected a 3D map into the air. Bailu quickly divided the map into 4 sectors. Splitting up would maximize efficiency. Hanshi will clear out the eastern sector. Zhongyuan will go with them to check whether the production line is intact. Feng Chao will clear the perimeter and the rooftops. Feng Zhou will handle the western administrative building and the data center. Deng Te will escort Professor Ji and Wang Chongming into the R&D building. Find the main server. Moments after the order was given, the joint force quickly split into 4 groups. They rapidly advanced toward their assigned target areas. Meanwhile, Nightingale and the others were left behind where they stood. Each of them had a complicated look in their eyes. They could only watch as the 4 major factions left. Just then, Bailu came back. Boss Guo sent word. He wants you to clear the 6 dorm buildings on the north side. Any problems with that? Nightingale gave a slight nod. Then, she started walking toward the dorm area. Seeing this, the people behind her quickly followed. At that moment, the Deng Te team arrived in front of the RID building. Professor Ji immediately sent people to clear the passageway. Then he and Wang Chongming took the elevator down to basement level 3. A moment later, the elevator doors slid open silently. At the end of the corridor on basement level 3 was a blast door. When Wang Chongming saw it, he quickly walked over. He entered a string of numbers into the control panel beside the door. Then came a click. The heavy mechanical lock began to turn. Then, the blast door slowly opened. A blast of cold air hit them at once. Inside the room, rows of black server racks were neatly lined up. Countless indicator lights flickered in the dark. Seeing this, the group quickly entered the room to look for the server. Soon, Wang Chongming said excitedly, "Found it." Hearing him, Professor Ji hurried over. At the same time, several technicians immediately spread out. They connected storage devices to the server ports and began copying the data. On the computer screen, a green progress bar slowly moved forward. Professor Ji then spoke into the communicator. "Boss Guo, Lighthouse has reached the target location. Copying the data is expected to take 40 minutes. Meanwhile, inside the huge production workshop in the Eastern District, the zombies had already been cleared out by the combat team. Zhou Yuan was standing in front of a massive production machine. His fingers moved quickly across the control panel. Soon, the indicator light above the machine changed from red to green. When Zhou Yuan saw it, he shouted excitedly, "The main structure of this production line is intact. We only need to replace a few worn parts. Then connect the power and it can be restarted." Hearing that, Scorpion asked in confusion, "Where are the batteries Boss Gu wants?" Over here, hearing that, Zhou Yuan pointed toward the tightly shut warehouse door deep inside the workshop. Then the rock soldiers stepped forward and pried the door open with a crowbar. Inside the warehouse, countless shelves stretched into the darkness. Everyone froze in place. Because the shelves were neatly stacked with brand new boxes, the boxes were printed with the unmistakable Thor Type 7 logo. At that moment, one of the soldiers stepped forward and cut open a box with a knife. The next second, more than a dozen brand new batteries rolled out. The rock soldiers instantly erupted with excitement. Zhou Yuan moved excitedly through the shelves, while quickly scanning the inventory codes with a tablet. There are at least 30,000 batteries here, and they're in excellent condition. The damage rate is under 5%. Hearing that, Scorpion could barely contain his excitement. If we bring this back, Boss Guo's canned food reward will probably pile up like a mountain. At that moment, Zhou Yuan called out again. There is more than one production line here. There are 2 complete production lines. As soon as he finished speaking, Scorpion burst into deafening laughter. He grabbed the walkie-talkie. Boss Guo, report. We found 30,000 intact batteries in the East District warehouse. There are also 2 complete production lines. In the convenience store, you were still leaning against the folding bed. Good news kept coming through the communicator. Beehive has secured all the high ground. No large-scale enemy presence has been found. The dorm building in the North District has been fully cleared. But your expression didn't change at all. You simply used your psychic power to take a can of cola off the shelf. Then, you leisurely started drinking it. Soon, the data copy was complete. All the batteries were packed up as well. Then, the 4 teams regrouped in front of the gate. By then, Scorpion was starting to feel uneasy. He didn't know whether you would agree to the victory banquet, or even take it out on him because of it. Just thinking about it made Scorpion's blood run cold. Not long after, the main group returned to the front of the convenience store. An eerie silence fell over the area. All eyes were fixed on the tightly shut rolling door. A moment later, the rolling door slowly rose. Your expression was calm. As you slowly walked out, your gaze fell on Scorpion. Scorpion, you said earlier that you wanted to hold a victory banquet, right? Hearing that, Scorpion's heart instantly sank. A fine sheen of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. I overstepped. Boss Guo, but you suddenly cut him off. Not a bad idea. Then you raised your hand and gave a slight wave. In an instant, in the middle of the square, a small mountain of meat appeared. There was pork, beef, chicken, and duck. Right after that, countless greens and potatoes appeared out of thin air. There were even several hundred cases of ice-cold beer. In an instant, the square filled with the sound of people swallowing. Then, your voice rang out again. What are you all standing around for? There is plenty of meat today. As soon as the words were spoken, the whole crowd fell into a brief dead silence. Then, thunderous cheers rose into the sky. The soldiers could no longer hold back. They all rushed toward that mountain of meat. A moment later, the Kanchi warriors set up grills and lit the charcoal. The people from the Ark started washing vegetables. Meanwhile, the Hive scouts spread out around the area. They took charge of security for the feast. Dozens of minutes later, the rich smell of meat filled the square. Everyone ate grilled meat and drank beer, as if everything had gone back to before the disaster. Meanwhile, Nightingale stood at the edge of the crowd, looking at you as you calmly watched it all. At that moment, she suddenly understood. What you gave her was not humiliation, nor was it charity. It was a choice. To keep being a lone wolf fighting over scraps, or submit to the Lion King, and enjoy the feast granted by the Lion King. You leaned against the doorframe, drinking a Coke. Suddenly, Scorpion came running over, his face glowing red. He gave a solemn bow. Boss, from now on, Panrock will be your most loyal ally. My life is yours, too. You said nothing. You simply crushed the empty Coke can in your hand, then tossed it into a trash can 10 meters away. Then, you said calmly, if you listen from now on, you'll have meat at every meal. Then you turned and walked back into the shadows of the convenience store. Those words hit everyone there like a shot in the arm. And your presence seemed to cover the entire square. The celebration went on. Bai Lu, Huang Feng, and Professor Ji sat around a simple table. They all knew clearly that from today on, the rules of the ruins had changed. Long afterward, the charcoal fire gradually died down. That mountain of meat had been completely wiped out. At that moment, the rolling shutter quietly rose. You stepped out once again. Everyone's eyes instantly turned to you. But you only raised a hand and waved. And piles of supplies suddenly appeared out of thin air in the square. There were not only compressed biscuits and rice, but also countless neatly stacked cans of luncheon meat and cigarettes. There are 2 shares of supplies here. One share is the payment promised to the 4 major factions. The other share will be divided among everyone who fought in the battle. Claim your share based on your merits. Bai Lu will handle the distribution. Scorpion will assist her. After saying that, you turned and went back into the convenience store. The square erupted in thunderous cheers once again. Bai Lu then stepped forward and began organizing the distribution according to the merit records. The whole process was orderly. At that moment, everyone knew the old era was over. From now on, there would be only one rule in these ruins, and that was your rule. Before long, all the supplies had been handed out. One convoy after another started their engines and drove out of the square. Before long, the square was left with nothing but scattered bones and empty bottles. Meanwhile, Nightingale and the Awakened stood alone in the middle of the square. At that moment, they knew perfectly well that you were their only choice. Seeing this, you gave a casual wave of your hand, and dozens of boxes of instant noodles and canned food appeared out of thin air. This is your payment. Take it and go. As soon as you finished speaking, the burly scar-faced man suddenly roared. Are you treating us like rags to be tossed aside after you've used us? You're sending us off with just one meal. The crowd behind him immediately grew restless too. But Nightingale did not move. She took 2 steps forward and looked straight at you. We want to stay and work for you. The tech park is empty right now. It won't be long before scavengers from the ruins set their sights on it, with no one guarding it. All that equipment and those supplies will be cleared out within a day. The people from the 4 major factions have gone back to recover. They won't be back anytime soon. And we're the only ones who can head to the park right away. At her words, the Awakened behind Nightingale fell silent and looked at one another. A faint smile touched the corner of your lips. As you said, calmly, in that case, you will no longer be free Awakened. You will become my first directly commanded action team instead. Codename, Nightblade. You'll be the captain. Your voice carried a firm resolve that allowed no argument. As your words fell, Nightingale gave a slight nod. Seeing that, you raised your hand again. The next second, a brand new diesel generator landed on the ground. Several barrels of diesel were set beside it. Right after that, a small reconnaissance drone and its control tablet appeared. Last came more than a dozen brand new military radios. This is your equipment. Now take your payment and your equipment and head to the technology park immediately. Set the dormitory area as your temporary base. Even if a single rat slips in, report it to me. Everyone stared at the equipment, wide-eyed. Even Nightingale showed a hint of barely contained excitement. She suddenly turned to look at her companions and barked sternly. Everyone, check the supplies and prepare to move out. This time, she was answered by a perfectly unified shout. Yes, Captain. Then everyone began moving the supplies. After that, they drove off toward the technology park in a cloud of dust. You pulled back your gaze and slowly pulled down the rolling shutter. Silence returned to the convenience store. You stared at the complete, intricate industrial design blueprints on the computer screen. The Thor 7 battery production line, process flow, and technical documents. A smile tugged at your lips, and then you returned to the real world, using the gold in the warehouse as startup capital and high-energy batteries as the foundation. You would build a real business empire of your own. News of this operation quickly spread across the wasteland. More and more people flocked to the square. Before long, a huge crowd had gathered. At that moment, you appeared in the doorway. But you didn't take out any food. You simply said coldly, I'll repeat my rules one more time. Use the valuable things you find to earn the right to survive. As your words fell, you appointed just one man as the temporary manager. At that point, a crude but efficient trading market began operating. The survivors lined up one after another to trade for supplies. Meanwhile, you sat in the convenience store and stored this old world's trash in your dimensional warehouse. Time passed, second by second. Dimensional travel cooldown complete. At that moment, you looked up toward the square. The line had only gotten longer, already stretching several hundred meters away. Seeing this, you say to the temporary manager, trading ends promptly at 5. No one will be served after that. Hearing that, the manager shudders. Then he shouts at the crowd with all his might. Boss Guo has spoken. Trading ends promptly at 5. If it is not your turn, come back early tomorrow. You nod in satisfaction. This temporary manager is pretty capable. He is a real talent. Then, you pick up the walkie-talkie, call Nightingale and have them send 2 people over. After trading ends, take the manager to the tech park and arrange a place for him to stay. As soon as you finish speaking, the manager trembles with excitement. He immediately turns around and kowtows 3 times toward the convenience store. You turn your attention back to the computer and carefully go over the information once more. At exactly 5, trading ends. The 2 team members sent by Nightingale have also arrived. The survivors leave one after another. No one dares cause trouble. Soon, the square falls silent again. Then, with a thought, the air around you begins to warp. A blurry vortex instantly appears before your eyes. In the blink of an eye, you return to the real world. There are still 2 hours left before your meeting with the boss behind Suwon. You immediately head to the most upscale mall downtown and walk straight into a top-end menswear store. Half an hour later, you walk out wearing a tailored dark gray suit. At this moment, you are no longer the owner of a convenience store, but a true member of high society. 7 o'clock that evening. Jingshan Tea House. A white cargo van pulls up in front of the main entrance. You step down from the driver's seat. Suwon is personally waiting at the entrance to greet you, but you pay her no mind. You simply walk to the back of the van, then take out 2 metal cases from the rear compartment. The corners of the metal cases are slightly warped from the weight. At the sight of this, Suwon's pupils contract sharply. 300 kilograms of gold are split between the 2 cases. Each one weighed 150 kilograms, yet you carried one in each hand with ease. Suwon took a deep breath. She forced down the shock inside her. Then she turned to the side and motioned for you to follow. The boss is waiting. Then she led you through the gate. You sensed several cold presences in the shadows of the courtyard, like a group of venomous snakes lying in wait. Soon, Suwon led you to a study deep inside the main building. Inside the study was a rosewood desk and walls lined with books. An elderly man was sitting behind the desk. He was holding a thread-bound ancient book, completely absorbed in it. Seeing this, Suwon gave him a deep bow. "Old Tang, Mr. Lee is here." At that, Old Tang closed the book. Then, he turned his gaze to you. You calmly looked back at him. Then you dropped the 2 cases heavily onto the rosewood desk. The whole desk let out a loud bang. 300 kilos of goods. Check them. At that moment, Old Tang raised his brows. He didn't touch the 2 cases. He only slowly picked up the desk phone. Soon, there was a knock at the door. A middle-aged man in gold-rimmed glasses walked into the study. He was carrying precision testing equipment. Then he reached out and flipped open the case lids. Inside, gold bars were neatly stacked in the cases. Then the middle-aged man began spot-checking and weighing them one by one. The inspection was finished quickly. The middle-aged man said, "Old Tang, 600 gold bars. Total weight, 300 kilograms. All of them meet the purity standard." At that, Old Tang waved his hand. Seeing that, the middle-aged man and Suwon left the room together. Old Tang laced his fingers together on the desk. "I can offer 246 million for this batch of gold." Suwon said, "You want a battery company." With that, Old Tang pushed a tablet towards you. The screen showed information on 3 companies. You didn't even look at it. "Just give me Isang technology." In the next second, Old Tang's pupils suddenly shrank. Aside from its factory buildings and worn-out production lines, Isang technology has no value left at all, and it is even out in the suburbs. That makes it clear. All you need is a legal front. Old Master Tang said nothing more. He picked up the phone and called the legal department directly. "Prepare the full equity transfer agreement for Isang technology. Have the finance department form a project team immediately. Handle this batch of gold through the cleanest channels possible." The call ended. Several departments immediately kicked into high gear. In less than an hour, the contract documents were delivered. You took the pen and signed your name right away. Old Master Tang froze when he saw that. He hadn't expected you to sign it, without even revising a single clause. But you looked at Old Master Tang, your gaze calm and steady. "I'm now the owner of this company. I want a complete list of all current employees at Isang Technology, including their positions, salaries, and all reward and disciplinary records. Also, freeze all company accounts immediately. Seize all physical assets. Without my order, nothing is to leave. Send one final notice to everyone at the company. There will be an all-hands meeting at the suburban factory at 9 tomorrow morning. Anyone late or absent will be considered to have resigned voluntarily. I'll have people handle it as you instructed. The acquisition price for Isang Technology is 180 million. How do you plan to deal with the remaining gold?" At that moment, you handed over a sheet of paper. "I need 5 million in cash. Please hold on to the rest for me for now, Old Master Tang. Once I've dealt with the internal affairs, transfer it into the company's account." Old Master Tang looked at you with a knowing smile. He found you more unfathomable than ever. Soon after, Suwon pushed a cart into the study. 2 black cases sat on the cart. "Mr. Guo, here is the 5 million in cash you requested." You nodded. Then you stood up and gave Old Master Tang a slight nod. Then you picked up the cases and turned to leave the study. Before long, you arrived outside the main gate. You tossed the two cases onto the passenger seat, then started the truck and drove off. At that moment, inside the study, Suan spoke to Old Master Tang. Are we really going to work closely with Mr. Guo? His background is far too mysterious, and his way of doing things is so overbearing it is almost heartless. The records show his past was completely ordinary, but in just the past few days, he suddenly gained unimaginable wealth. After hearing this, Old Master Tang slowly turned around. He spoke calmly. Destroy all the information we've found. Leave nothing behind. Also, from now on, no one under us is allowed to investigate Mr. Guo in any way. Anyone who disobeys will be punished by family law. Also, if Mr. Guo needs anything, meet it at any cost. Hearing this, Suan's eyes turned sharp. Understood. The next morning at 8:45, hundreds of employees had gathered in the workshop at Isang Technologies factory. Everyone kept whispering to one another, and every face was full of unease and speculation. Just then, the roar of an engine came closer and closer. At once, everyone's eyes turned toward the workshop entrance. You held a folder in your hand and walked straight into the crowd. As you looked around at them, the chatter stopped abruptly. Then you opened the folder in your hand and called over Isang Technologies' director. You have 10 minutes to pack up your personal belongings. Get out. As soon as the words fell, the entire workshop seemed to freeze. Shock instantly spread across the director's face. This is outrageous. Who the hell do you think you are, telling me to get out? Just then, the chief engineer stepped forward to plead for mercy. We may not have achieved commercialization yet, but we've already made breakthrough progress in materials and design. If you just give us a little more time and funding. To his surprise, you suddenly cut him off. Your project has been going on for 3 years, burning through the company's R-shed budget and government subsidies, for a total of 78 million. The battery sample you made doesn't even meet half the market standard. As for safety, it carries a severe risk of thermal runaway. Your technology is worthless. At that, the engineer could barely stay on his feet. You don't understand anything. You're destroying Isang. But you said coldly, Isang will only be ruined in your hands, and I will lead Isang to a fresh start and completely overturn the entire battery industry. The moment those words were spoken, everyone looked at each other. Doubt and unease began to spread. Seeing this, you continued speaking and called in several executives one after another. Then you laid out the evidence of each person's embezzlement one by one. Only then did everyone realize you hadn't come to negotiate at all, but to settle accounts. As you finished reading the last name and their crimes, the executive team completely lost its swagger. The threat of prison hung over every one of them. Even the directors had gone completely pale. But it still wasn't over. You kept calling out names, your voice like a cold scythe. From the production line to the warehouse department, even the logistics support team, every person you named had been cutting corners and neglecting their duties. Faced with the hard evidence, not one of them could say a word in their defense. They could only slink out the door under everyone else's contemptuous stares. More than 10 minutes later, the workshop had lost nearly 1/5 of its staff. Everyone who remained was silent with fear. The air was filled with an unprecedented. At that moment, you closed the folder. Then, under everyone's gaze, you took a briefcase out of the car. You threw the case into the middle of the workshop. Then you opened it in front of everyone. Inside were stacks of neatly arranged red banknotes. 5 million in cash was laid out in plain sight just like that. You said calmly, "This money is for you." The money those people embezzled and skimmed was far more than this. Starting today, everyone who stays gets a 50% raise. The wages the directors withheld will be paid in full before production resumes. Everyone, line up now. Each person gets a 10,000 yuan bonus. As soon as the words left your mouth, the workshop fell silent for a brief moment. Then thunderous cheers erupted like a volcano. At that moment, all the earlier unease and suspicion burned away. Before long, a long line formed on its own in front of the cash case. After receiving the money, everyone gave you a deep bow. But then an abrupt, discordant voice broke the moment. Suddenly, an assistant engineer from the RID department spoke calmly. "Director Guo, my name is Sun Lei. I used to work under Chief Engineer Chen doing materials testing. Now, the company's executive team has almost been completely cleared out. Even Chief Engineer Chen was fired. What are we supposed to produce next?" As soon as he said that, the whole room fell silent. Because a company without a production target can't keep operating. When that happens, everyone will be out of a job. At that thought, everyone's eyes turned to you. At that moment, you didn't give a long speech. You simply took out the Thor No. 7 battery. This is the answer. Starting today, Yuansing Technology will produce only this product. Its name is Yuansing number 1. The next second, Sun Lei and several technicians crowded around. Their eyes were full of curiosity and scrutiny. Is this a prototype? Director Guo, may I ask what its key specs are? An energy density of 400 watt-hours per kilogram. A full cycle lifespan of 5,500 cycles. The moment those words were spoken, it was as if the air itself had frozen. Every technician there gasped. Sun Lei almost shouted, "That is absolutely impossible. Those numbers violate the laws of physics. Even compared to the world's top experimental samples, that is pure fantasy." Faced with this tidal wave of doubt, this was exactly the reaction you wanted. Is there testing equipment in the workshop? Use your best equipment and your strictest standards to verify whether what I'm saying is true. Sun Lei froze on the spot. He hadn't expected you to be so confident. Then, Sun Lei suddenly shouted, "Everyone from technical and quality control, with me." Then, he strode forward, carefully taking the battery from your hand and cradling it in his palms. Then, he led the way, sprinting toward the lab on the second floor. Half an hour later, the inspection was complete. Sun Lei came rushing downstairs like a madman. His hands trembled as he held several test reports. The test results are in energy density, 401.7 watt-hours per kilogram. Under high-intensity charge-discharge testing, capacity fade was only 0.3%, and it passed every safety test. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone stood there in stunned silence. At that moment, the block of metal before them seemed like a mountain of gold. After Sun Lei made the announcement, he could no longer hold back the turmoil inside him. He walked up to you and gave you a deep bow. "From today on, if you tell us to go east, I absolutely won't go west." You then instructed the employee by the cash boxes. Finish handing out the money and keep a record of it. Everyone is to be at work on time at 9 tomorrow morning. After saying that, you turned and left. Under the fervent gaze of hundreds of people, you rode off in the truck, trailing a cloud of dust. Inside the truck, you picked up your phone and called Su Wan. "I need you to take care of a few things. Receive the technical files I'm sending you. File the patents in the name of Yuansing Technology as fast as possible. Classify all technical details as top secret. Also hire a top-tier professional manager to run the company. Then recruit a group of the country's top battery experts. Finally, arrange a press conference for me. Set it for 3 days from now." On the other end of the line, Su Wan's eyes sharpened. She was shocked by your swift, decisive way of doing things. "Understood, I'll get on it right away." With that, you hung up. In the study, Su Wan repeated your requests to Old Tang word for word. After hearing them, a clear look of emotion appeared on Old Tang's face. Do exactly as he says. Use every connection and resource we have. Cooperate with him at any cost. Let's see what kind of surprise he brings in 3 days. Soon, the forces under Old Tang went into overdrive. Within half an hour, top patent firms received encrypted technical files, and 3 top headhunting firms received the same assignment. At the same time, article after article took over the tech headlines, pushing Yuansing Technology into the spotlight. Meanwhile, you restocked supplies as usual, and then set out for the apocalypse world. You contacted forces such as Panshi and Ark, and told them to bring crystal cores and gold for trade. At the same time, you sent people to Tianchong Tech Park to move the batteries, and completely dismantle the production line. Next, you called Nightingale over. First, you gave her some new supplies, then had her meet with people from the 4 major factions. You knew very well that Nightingale and the others alone couldn't protect the entire Tianchong Tech Park. So you instructed Nightingale to start recruiting Awakened. The plan was to increase the number of Awakened to 100. The cooldown for this jump turned out exactly as you expected, dropping to 9 hours. It was steadily getting closer to unlimited traversal, and you stayed there for more than 10 hours. The survivors from the ruins brought a large amount of goods. Trade completed. You got over 200 kilograms of gold and 30 grams of crystal cores. You stored the gold in the dimensional warehouse and absorbed the crystal cores directly. A moment later, your power was strengthened again. The dimensional warehouse's capacity increased to 4,000 cubic meters, while your telekinesis was enhanced to lift objects weighing 300 kilograms. It could also compress and accelerate metal even further. After finishing all that, you returned to the real world and slept soundly. You didn't go to Yuansing Technology until the next day. At that moment, the factory grounds were livelier than ever. The employees couldn't hide the smiles on their faces. Every so often, a burst of exclamations would come from the lab, all of them marveling at the battery's performance. And you sat in the office, having just hung up with Su Wan. She was on her way with the talent you wanted. An hour later, There was a knock on the office door. Then, a short-haired woman walked in. The visitor was Jiang Yi. Suwan followed behind her. Before you could speak, she asked, "Time is precious. Let's not waste it on small talk." The headhunting firm said, "You're about to launch a product that will change the world with this company that is on the verge of bankruptcy, because I can offer something no one else can. A product powerful enough to put every battery maker in the world out of business." At that, Jiang Yi let out a cold laugh. "I've been in this industry for 10 years. I've seen too many young people like you. Young people who dream of changing the world. Without exception, they all became the laughingstock of the industry. I came here for just one reason. What makes you different from them?" As soon as she finished speaking, you suddenly smiled. Then you got up and walked to the door. "Come with me." Jiang Yi froze for a moment when she saw that. Then he quickly caught up with you. Suwan hurried to catch up too. Before long, you arrived at the quality inspection lab on the second floor. You told Sunlei to bring over the quality inspection report. After Jiang Yi took the report, he kept scanning through it. A few seconds later, his eyes were full of mockery. "Falsifying data takes skill. This report of yours is full of holes." At that, Sunlei's face turned red. He quickly argued back. Every single data point was tested by US personally. But Jiang Yi just looked around at the equipment in the lab. Then a scornful smile curled at the corner of his mouth. "Using these 20-year-old antiques. Even now, your expression didn't change at all. How do you want to test it? Simple." As he spoke, Jiang Yi took a USB drive out of his bag. "This has a top-tier battery testing protocol I developed before. It is more than 5 times stricter than the national standard. Your batteries need to be tested again under it. My people will handle every test from start to finish. And it has to be done at an internationally certified third-party testing facility." "Fine, Suwan, help me contact Elder Tang. I want to use Zhonga Testing's lab." Right now, the moment those words were spoken, Jiang Yi froze on the spot. He hadn't expected you to agree so readily, or to use the most advanced lab. Suwan immediately took out her phone and made the call. In less than 10 minutes, Suwan quickly walked over to your side. "Mr. Guo has already made the arrangements. The lab will be open to us for the next 24 hours. Hearing that, you picked up Yuansing number 1 from the table. Then, you left with the others. Soon after, you arrived at Zhong Testing Center. Jiang Yi led his team straight into the core lab. He plugged the USB drive into the computer, then placed the Yuansing number 1 battery into the testing equipment. A moment later, at Jiang Yi's command, the test officially began. One brutal test after another was carried out. For a while, the entire lab was silent except for the sound of the machines. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the testing to finish. As time passed, Jiang Yi and his team grew more and more alarmed. Yuansing number 1 performed flawlessly in every test. When the final test was completed, the steel needle pierced the battery, and all the readings on the screen were still as steady as ever. The entire lab fell silent. Jiang Yi looked at the almost perfect test report, and only after a long pause did he say 3 words. "A new era." Jiang Yi slowly turned around and looked at me. "I'm in, but I still have one question. Can a product like this really be mass-produced? What about the cost?" That was the last bit of rational thinking he had as a professional manager. You didn't answer. You just took another USB drive from your pocket and handed it to him. "This contains the complete production process for Yuansing 1, as well as the production line upgrade plan. Your task is to move as fast as possible and turn the production line into one that can mass produce it. As for the production cost, it is only 10% higher than current mainstream batteries." The moment those words were spoken, Jiang Yi's mind went blank. He took the USB drive with trembling hands. He knew it held more than just electronic data. It was also a secret powerful enough to reshape the entire global industrial order. At that moment, Jiang Yi's eyes filled with resolve. "I understand. From this moment on, Sunlei will serve as Chief Technology Officer. Everyone, come back to the company with me right now. Within 2 days, I want all of you to memorize every part of these blueprints." However, at that moment, Jiang Yi seemed to think of something. He looked at you, slightly frowning. "Gudong, getting the materials needed for the production line upgrade will take a month. What are we supposed to show the media at the launch event the day after tomorrow? I'll take care of the core components. Put together a list of the matching parts and send it to me. I'll bring everything over by tomorrow at the latest. What you need to do is get the production line running before the launch event and produce the first finished unit." With that, you walked straight out of the lab. Hearing that, the others quickly got moving too. Half an hour later, inside Yuansing Technology's office, Sunlei handed you a materials list. You took the list and gave it a quick glance. then slipped it into your pocket. Wait for my word. After leaving just that one sentence behind, you turned and left. Not long after, you returned to the convenience store. Then, you immediately activated the shuttle. You returned to the post-apocalyptic world. You took out the walkie-talkie and started calling people over. In less than 20 minutes, 3 SUVs pulled up outside the convenience store. Bai Lu got out with Zhou Yuan and Wang Chongming. Boss Guo, I've brought them. You nodded at Bai Lu, then handed over the list. Go to the tech park and bring these items back. Everything on the list must be brought back exactly as listed, even if you have to dismantle the production line. At those words, Zhou Yuan and Wang Chongming's hearts clenched, but neither of them dared object. We guarantee we'll complete the mission. A moment later, the convoy set off and sped toward the tech park. You picked up the walkie-talkie and switched it to the public channel. This is Xiao Guo. It is time to trade. Bring gold and crystal cores to trade for supplies. The moment you finished speaking, replies started coming in one after another. Over the walkie-talkie, Hanshi outpost copies, Hive copies, Lighthouse copies, Arc copies. Then you switched to the encrypted channel again. How is Nightingale's recruitment coming along? We've preliminarily selected 30 awakened ones. As instructed, we're conducting the second round of loyalty screening. Good. I don't keep useless people or ungrateful traders. As long as they're willing to work, they can have as many supplies as they need. Understood. Within 3 days, Nightingale's full roster will be delivered to you. Hearing this, you set down the walkie-talkie and waited. In less than an hour, the roar of engines rose at the same time from all 4 directions of the ruins. Vehicles from the 4 major factions pulled up in front of the convenience store. Scorpion took the lead. He set down 2 heavy metal cases. Boss Guo, this is all of Panrock's stock from this whole period. The Hornets were next, followed by the Arc and Lighthouse factions. Before long, the metal cases were opened, and the gold bars and crystal cores were counted out one by one. You casually put them into your dimensional storage. Meanwhile, the 4 major factions took turns lining up to collect the various supplies they had ordered. Box after box of supplies was carried off by the 4 major factions. There were cigarettes, liquor, rice, and meat, as well as all kinds of medicine. There were even walkie-talkies and drones. With the supplies you provided, the quality of life for the 4 major factions and the awakened gradually improved. The trade went very smoothly. In total, you gained nearly 300 kilograms of gold, as well as 42 grams of crystal cores. Soon, the square fell silent again. You immediately absorbed all the crystal cores. As a cool surge of energy flowed into your body, you could clearly feel your mental field rapidly expanding. Both the precision and strength of your telekinetic control were multiplying. At that moment, your telekinesis limit easily broke through 400 kilograms. The space inside your dimensional storage also expanded to 5,000 cubic meters. Just then, the sound of an engine came from outside. Bai Lu, Zhou Yan, and the others parked the vehicle in front of the convenience store. The back was loaded with all kinds of precision parts. Bai Lu walked to the door and said, Boss Guo, all the core components and materials on the list are here, exactly as requested. Hearing that, you stood up. Good. At that moment, the Yuansing Tech Factory complex was brightly lit. The workshop was a noisy mess, with the sound of metal cutting ringing out non-stop. Jiang Yi stood on the second floor platform, looking down at the busy scene below. His eyes were bloodshot, but he still gave clear, decisive orders. Under his relentless pressure, the entire technical team was running like wound-up machines past their limits. Just then, a low engine roar sounded. You drove the truck to a stop at the workshop entrance. At that moment, countless eyes turned to you. You stepped down from the driver's seat and then walked to the back of the truck. You pulled open the heavy cargo doors. The next second, the compartment was revealed to be packed full of parts. Seeing this, Sun Lei scrambled over. The nearby technicians rushed in, too. Everyone moved the parts as fast as they could. Jiang Yi walked up to you without saying a word. He just looked at you deeply. Then he suddenly turned and shouted to the technical team. Sun Lei, take your team and start installing the core drive shaft. Team 2, start pre-calibrating the high-precision sensor array. Team 3, place all the alloy components in the welding stations in order. Before daybreak, I want this production line up and running. The next second, a thunderous response rang out. It made the whole workshop hum. Right after that, the workers quickly got to work. The production line that had been nothing but an empty frame was visibly being filled with precision parts. Time flew by amid the roar of machinery. When the first pale light appeared in the eastern sky, Sun Lei personally tightened the last high-strength bolt. At that point, the entire production line was fully built. Zhang Yi walked up to the main control console of the production line. He pressed the start button. At once, a low electrical hum spread through the workshop. The whole production line was like a steel beast being awakened. Hundreds of indicator lights came on one after another. Everyone's attention was drawn to it, with all the instruments working together efficiently and precisely. The entire process ran smoothly. Just as it reached the final step, a shrill alarm suddenly went off. Warning: internal pressure is abnormal and has exceeded the safety threshold. Hearing that, Zhang Yi's expression changed. He lunged to the control console in a single stride. What is going on? Sunlei also stepped forward. His hands kept moving over the controls. He spoke with a tremor in his voice. It is the reaction at the moment the passivation film forms. The peak is far beyond expectations. The material is too aggressive. The energy released in that instant is too high. I'm afraid the casing won't hold. At those words, everyone's heart sank. They all believed failure was inevitable. But then the pressure curve dropped rapidly and stabilized within the safe range. The piercing alarm stopped abruptly as well. At that moment, Sunlei stared blankly at the screen. Voyager 1 withstood the energy impact purely through its own structure. The deformation rate of its alloy casing was 0. Then, he suddenly turned to look toward the production line. We did it. As soon as he said that, a Voyager 1 unit slowly appeared at the end of the production line. The next second, thunderous cheers broke out. We did it. We really made it. Several veteran workers who had been up all night shouted excitedly. Even Zhang Yi couldn't stop trembling. He stepped forward and cradled the battery in his hands. Then, he raised it high toward the crowd. We did it. Meanwhile, you leaned against a car door in the distance, with a faint smile on your face. A moment later, the cheering started to die down. Zhang Yi's eyes turned sharp again. There are less than 27 hours left until the launch event. I'll put together a complete event rundown and speech draft. Everyone, disperse now and get some rest. Everyone meet at 4 this afternoon. We'll do the final briefing before the launch event. After saying that, Zhang Yi handed the battery to you. You took the battery and handed it straight to Suwan, telling her to keep it safe. Soon, the entire factory fell silent again, and Zhang Yi began going over the steps for the launch event. I suggest dividing the launch event into 3 parts. First, we'll present the data using that report from the Zhongcasting Center. Second, we'll do a live test with the actual product. Third, we'll announce future production plans and preliminary cooperation intentions. Just then, Suwan's phone suddenly rang. She picked it up and looked at the screen. Her face instantly filled with shock. President Zhang, Director Guo. Look at this. With that, Suwan handed over her phone. There was a financial news alert on the screen. Tianheng Energy CEO Zhou Zhen gave an interview and attacked Isang Technology as if he were the industry leader. He claimed Isang Technology's production line had long been abandoned and that it didn't even have the most basic battery production qualifications, and called for a boycott of this kind of market-disrupting report. There was also a photo of a rundown production line attached at the end. At the sight of it, the atmosphere in the workshop instantly turned ice cold. But to everyone's surprise, Zhang Yi suddenly laughed. He stood up and walked over to the production line. Director Guiyu, I'd like to request a change to the launch event plan. Tomorrow's launch event won't include any product presentation. We'll set up cameras throughout the entire workshop. We livestream ourselves making a brand new Isang, one on site for the whole world to see, and immediately put it through hell mode testing. Then, in the end, we'll take it apart in front of everyone, so the whole world can see with their own eyes. That Isang number 1 isn't just an empty shell. Can we handle the media and the live streaming platforms? We can. Zhang Yi's voice was firm and unwavering. You nodded at his words. Then you pulled your phone out of your pocket and called Tianheng Energy headquarters. Send them an invitation and tell them the seat in the dead center of the front row at the launch event is being saved for him. Not long after, in the chairman's office at Tianheng Energy, Zhou Zhen had just finished a meeting with investment firms. He had made Isang Technology a byword for a capital scam. That interview had taken over the headlines of every major financial outlet. In his view, this war was already over. But just then, his chief assistant walked into the office. Mr. Zhou, they've invited you to tomorrow's product launch. Zhou Zhen took the invitation and opened it. Looking at the provocative words on it, anger rose in Zhou Zhen's heart. Very well. Tell them this. I accept their invitation. I want to see for myself how they're going to end this. The assistant nodded. Then he quickly left the office. That afternoon, online public opinion completely exploded. First, Tianheng Energy's official account made a high-profile announcement that Chairman Zhou Zhen would attend Isang Technology's launch event by invitation. to expose the chaos in the industry and uphold market order. Right after that, Isang Technology's official account posted a poster. There were only a few bold lines on it. We're doing just one public demonstration. From components to battery. From production to disassembly. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Tune in to the global livestream. The poster hit public opinion like a bombshell and quickly turned the launch event into the focus of nationwide attention. At this moment, inside Isang Technology's factory complex, Sunlei was leading several technicians in inspecting the production line. Jiang Yi then came over to you. Boss Guo, dressed like that. I'm afraid you won't command the room tomorrow. Hearing that, you looked down at what you were wearing. You're right. Then you and Jiang Yi headed to the most upscale luxury mall in the city. Soon, you pulled up to the mall entrance in a truck. Then, you and Jiang Yi went into a high-end suit shop. As soon as Jiang Yi walked in, he said, "We need suit fabric for tomorrow. Something that can command the room, but not too flashy." Hearing that, the master tailor looked you over. He sized you up in just a few seconds. He turned and pulled out several fabric samples. How about these high thread count Italian wool fabrics? After hearing that, Jiang Yi picked one up and ran his hand over it. This one. Next came the tedious but efficient measuring and fitting process. Just then, a snide voice rang out. "Well, if it isn't Boss Guo, do you really think the money from your little convenience store is enough to buy even a scrap of fabric here?" As soon as the words fell, Wang Hao walked in through the door with Zhang Chen in his arms. When Zhang Chen saw you, a look of disdain appeared on her face. "Wang Hao, don't say that. The clothes here aren't cheap." Maybe Xiao Guo really turned things around and even paid off that debt of over 300,000. By now, you had long since left the past behind. So from start to finish, you said nothing. You simply stayed calm and let them continue taking your measurements. But being ignored like that made Zhang Qian feel embarrassed and angry. At that moment, Jiang Yi instantly understood the relationship between you, so he stepped half a pace forward, his eyes settling on Wang Hao. "Your father is the president of Hongda Construction under Tianheng Energy, right?" "That is right. At least you've got a good eye." Wang Hao assumed Jiang Yi was trying to curry favor with him, but to his surprise, Jiang Yi said calmly, "The funding chain for the Chengyan real estate project has broken. To cover the gap, your father diverted 300 million in special bank loans. Hongda's cash flow is probably under 20 million by now, but the 15th of next month is the final repayment deadline, right?" As soon as the words left his mouth, Wang Hao froze in place, his face full of shock. He couldn't understand how Jiang Yi knew all those inside details. In an instant, everything Wang Hao had been bragging about was torn to pieces. Jiang Yi couldn't even be bothered to look at him again. He turned to the master tailor and said, "Make 2 top-quality shirts in this size, along with 3 ties. Deliver them with the clothes to this address before 9 tomorrow morning." After saying that, he took a business card out of his bag and set it on the counter. The 4 words, Isang Technology, on the card caught Wang Hao's eye. In an instant, all the recent news stories came together in his mind. The next second, Wang Hao let out an almost hysterical laugh. "The president of a scam company has no right to investigate my family's company." Zhang Chen also remembered the trending story she'd seen online and started sneering. "I thought you'd hooked up with some rich older woman, but it turns out you just found yourself a con artist. You two really are a perfect match." At that moment, Jiang Yi looked at the two of them calmly, but Wang Hao walked right up to him and nearly poked him in the face with his finger. "Get on your knees and apologize right now. Otherwise, one phone call from me can shut your company down." At that, Jiang Yi stepped sideways and blocked Wang Hao. When Wang Hao met your cold gaze, he instantly grew a little flustered. But you didn't make a move. You just said calmly, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Isang Technology's factory. You're welcome to bring your media friends with you. After saying that, you didn't look at him again. You just gave Jiang Yi a slight signal. And then the two of you left one after the other. At that moment, a wave of humiliation washed over Wang Hao. Your words kept echoing in his ears. Like the pity of the strong toward the weak, not even worth an explanation. A vicious glint flashed in Wang Hao's eyes. "Fine, I'll make sure everyone sees what kind of clown you really are." At 9 o'clock the next morning, the once deserted industrial district on the east side of the city became the focus of the whole city and even the entire nation. The entrance to Isang Technology's factory was packed tight. News vans from major media outlets had practically blocked the road. There were even plenty of influencers holding up their phones and live streaming. Just then, a stir went through the crowd. A Rolls-Royce Phantom slowly drove into view. It stopped at the factory gate. Zhou Zhen stepped out, surrounded by bodyguards. He wore a gentle, confident smile. At once, camera flashes went off all around. The reporters instantly rushed forward to interview him. Do you have evidence that Isang Technology committed fraud? What do you think of this suicidal live stream stunt? Hearing that, Zhou stopped in his tracks. He smiled at the cameras. I'm not here today to attack anyone. I'm only here as someone who has spent half his life in the battery industry, to personally witness the rise of this so-called industry newcomer. As for what the truth is, I believe the facts will give us the best answer. After saying that, Zhou walked into the venue. Just then, a red Ferrari pulled up at the entrance. Wang Hao got out with his arm around Jiang Chen, looking smug and full of himself. Behind him followed that group of media friends of his. A moment later, Wang Hao entered the venue with Jiang Chen, surrounded by the crowd. Inside the factory, the audience seating was simply divided into several sections. All of them faced the production line. And beside the line, more than a dozen HD cameras had been set up. They could capture every detail of the production line. The whole venue was strangely quiet. Everyone was stunned by the scene before them. Time passed second by second. At exactly 10 in the morning, all the lights in the venue suddenly went dark. The whole world's eyes were fixed on this place. In the darkness, a spotlight shone down from the ceiling. It lit up the futuristic production line. At the same time, the live camera moved in. The image was shown to everyone on the big screens. At that moment, people in the venue began murmuring among themselves. Meanwhile, Zhou sat in a reserved front row seat, his brows tightly furrowed. He immediately sensed that something was off. Looking at this production line that was beyond anything he understood, Zhou unease quietly grew. Just then, Zhang Yi walked in with steady steps. He went straight to the front of the production line and stopped. Friends from the media. Good morning, everyone. I'm Zhang Yi, president of Isang Technology. Today, we will show you, starting with the most basic raw materials, how a Isang number 1 battery is made. Next, please welcome our chairman, Mr. Xiao Guo. As soon as he finished speaking, your figure appeared before everyone. You were wearing a custom-made suit, your eyes calm as still water. Then, you casually walked over to the production line control panel and lightly leaned against it. Welcome everyone to today's launch event. Just as Zhang Yi said, today we're here to do just one thing, live production. With that, you press the button on the control panel. The next second, the entire silent production line came to life. Hundreds of indicator lights lit up one by one. At the same time, the robotic arms slowly rose into standby mode. At the same time, the electronic screen lit up and split into several sections. The main screen showed a close-up of workstation number 1 on the production line. On camera, a variety of basic raw materials were laid out. Then, Zhang Yi began introducing each raw material, from silicon dioxide to graphite powder. Seeing this, Zhou openly sneered. What a joke. Are you trying to stall for time like this? Wang Hao was laughing so hard he was doubled over. Is this a lesson for middle schoolers? The live stream was also flooded with mocking comments. But just then, the production line suddenly started up. The robotic arms picked up measured amounts of raw materials and fed them into the fully enclosed furnace. On the screen, the temperature readings inside the equipment shot up instantly. At the same time, Zhang Yi explained calmly, using our proprietary plasma bombardment technology, we can break the raw materials down to the atomic level and remove all impurities, yielding pure silicon, lithium, and carbon. Then we restructure the silicon atoms to form a unique three-dimensional porous silicon-carbon framework. That is the key to its ultra-high energy density and stability. Every word Zhang Yi said hit like a bombshell. The smile on Zhou face froze completely. Those technical terms he had only ever seen in cutting-edge journals, or even only heard of in science fiction novels. At that moment, Zhou suddenly sat up straight and stared at the rapidly changing data. Every data point on the screen matched the process perfectly. A moment later, Zhou lowered his voice. He ordered the technical director, check it for me. Where exactly did all this come from? However, cold sweat broke out on the technical director's forehead. Mr. Zhou, we've already looked into it. There are no more than 5 labs in the world that can achieve this kind of technology, and the samples they produce are only measured in milligrams. Hearing this, Zhou's heart slowly sank. Just then, the production entered the next step. At the same time, Zhang Yi continued explaining. One technical term after another came out. When Zhou suddenly jerked his head up, a fierce glint flashed in his eyes. I found the flaw in this scam. This must be a pre-recorded video. As long as I make a demand they can't meet, this scam will be exposed on the spot. Thinking that, Zhou stopped hesitating. He shot to his feet, cutting off Jiang Yi's explanation. Mr. Jiang, please wait a moment. The technology you're showing is indeed astonishing. But how can I be sure this isn't just a professionally made video? The moment he said that, the crowd instantly erupted. People immediately began voicing their doubts. At that moment, the sneer on Jojen's lips grew deeper. I demand that this video be stopped immediately, and that any member of the media here be chosen at random to use our camera to film the production line live and project the footage onto the big screen. If you can do that, I'll apologize to you in front of the whole world. When he finished speaking, the entire factory fell silent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on you and Jiang Yi. Hearing this, Wang Hao trembled with excitement. They definitely won't dare. I told you they were a bunch of frauds. Time passed, second by second. At last, you slowly straightened up, then stepped to the very front of the stage. Yes, your answer struck like a thunderclap in everyone's mind. Even the smile on Jojen's face instantly froze, but he still forced down the shock in his heart. Chairman Guo, you've got guts. In that case, let's begin. With that, Jojen sent out the company's chief cameraman. Jiang Yi then turned to the staff and gestured to them. Soon, a staff member came up carrying a data cable. Then, Jiang Yi said, "This is a backup port. It can connect directly to the big screen. Mr. Zhou, please go ahead." Hearing that, Jojen clenched his jaw. He walked over to the cameraman himself. He connected the data cable. Then he told the cameraman to point the camera at the ultrasonic fusion device. Jojen shouted, "I want you to repeat this step right now. I want the inside of this machine filmed the whole time." This demand was even harsher than before. But your response once again went beyond everyone's expectations. No problem. But from down there, I'm afraid you won't be able to see it clearly. Why don't you and the cameraman come up on stage yourselves and verify every step up close? As soon as you said that, the entire venue was completely stunned. Jojen's mind went blank. Going on stage meant he would become the challenger and examine all of this under the eyes of the whole world. If all of this was real, he would become the biggest joke of the century. But if he refused, it would be the same as admitting he had a guilty conscience. At that thought, Jojen took a deep breath. Then, he stepped onto the stage. The cameraman stayed close behind him. Seeing this, you said nothing else. You simply turned, walked back to the control console, and pressed the button. The next second, the production line started up. The material fusion process began. The cameraman quickly pressed the camera against the machine. At that moment, the big screen showed the camera's live feed. 2 streams of differently colored powder were injected in. Then they began spinning at high speed like a nebula. Under an invisible force, they were pulled apart and torn to pieces. They turned into 2 dense clouds of mist. Then, guided by a strange force field, they blended and fused together flawlessly. The whole process had the surreal beauty of a sci-fi movie. At the same time, the real-time data showed that every indicator had reached perfect values. Soon, the process was over. At that moment, Jojen's whole body was trembling. His face was full of fear. This can't be real. This has to be a hallucination. Just then, you spoke calmly. "Mr. Zhou, did you see it clearly? Want to do that again? Put your face up there and get slapped again." At those words, Jojen's vision went dark, and he nearly fainted on the spot. Below the stage, Tianheng Energy's executive team was already in complete chaos. They knew Tianheng Energy was completely finished today. Meanwhile, on the big screen, the camera switched and battery production continued. More futuristic-looking equipment started up one after another. Every step of the process kept stunning viewers around the world. Just then, a financial reporter screamed while holding up her phone. Tianheng Energy's stock hit the circuit breaker 3 minutes after the market opened. All related stocks have crashed across the board too. The moment those words came out, no one paid any more attention to the production line. Everyone quickly pulled out their phones to check the market. Wang Hao sat there in a daze. His phone kept ringing. When he answered, his father's furious voice came through. "What have you done? The stock has crashed. The company's finished. Why did you have to provoke Bosky?" Before he could finish, Wang Hao's hand dropped limply. Amid the chaos, Jiang Yi's voice rang out again. From a single grain of sand to a complete Yuansing number, 1 battery. The entire process took 15 minutes and 23 seconds. That concludes today's live stream. After saying that, he gave a slight bow to the audience. Then he turned and walked toward you. Seeing this, you straightened up. Without glancing at the audience, under everyone's gaze, you walked backstage with Jiang Yi. Inside the metal doors, only the crowd in the factory remained, caught in a swirl of complicated emotions. The moment the backstage door closed, it felt like it separated 2 different worlds. Outside the door was a tidal wave of chaos and frenzy. Inside was a silence so deep you could hear a pin drop. Jiang Yi let out a long breath. It is over. No, it is not over. This is only the beginning. At that, Jiang Yi gave a bitter smile and shook his head. Before he could speak, the phone started vibrating like crazy the next second. Jiang Yi picked up his phone and looked at it. The screen was packed with missed calls and message alerts. Countless world-famous electronics brands were scrambling to partner with us. Seeing this, Jiang Yi forced down the excitement in his heart. We did it. The whole world wants our batteries. We should expand production right away and move into every industry that needs energy. But your face stayed calm and unreadable. How many batteries can that production line make in a day? Compared to those giants with orders worth hundreds of millions, our production capacity is as tiny as a speck of dust. Once we can't meet market expectations, this momentum we're seeing today will tear us apart sooner or later. Hearing that, Jiang Yi's expression turned serious. Then, what should we do? At that moment, you walked up to him and held up one finger. Focus all our resources and break through in one area first. With the same production capacity, new energy vehicles can bring in dozens of times more profit from battery sales. At the same time, we need to make everyone understand that only the most high-end cars are worthy of using Isang number 1. Jiang Yi instantly understood your strategy, but he still felt a sense of helplessness. Building a new production line would take at least a year, even at the fastest. We can't afford to wait. Who said I was going to build one myself? Isn't there a ready-made solution right in front of us? I want you to buy Tindahan Energy's production plant. At that moment, Jiang Yi's mind went blank. He instinctively objected. Even though Tindahan Energy's stock hit the circuit breaker, it still hasn't officially declared bankruptcy. Even if it does go bankrupt, it still has to go through a long liquidation process. That process would take at least half a year to a year. To finish, we don't need to wait. Tindahan Energy is backed by an astronomical amount of bank loans. Now that it is collapsed, the ones most afraid are the banks that lent it the money. No matter who takes over Tianheng's mess next, those banks will be more than willing. Hearing this, Jiang Yi started breathing faster. I'll contact the bank that gave Tindahan its biggest loan right now. With that, Jiang Yi didn't hesitate anymore. He walked over to the desk and started looking up the relevant information. Meanwhile, the chairman's office at Tindahan Energy was a complete mess. The floor was covered with countless torn-up documents, and Zhou Zhen was slumped on the couch in a daze. He still couldn't figure out where that production equipment had come from. Suddenly, the secure phone on the desk let out a shrill ring. It was the direct line to President Li, one of the bank's top executives. When Zhou Zhen heard it, his whole body jerked. He struggled to his feet and answered the phone. A cold male voice came from the other end. Mr. Zhou, your company's stock price is showing abnormal fluctuations. It has already triggered the forced liquidation and asset collateral clauses. You are now required to repay loans totaling 7.2 billion immediately. Tindahan Energy is worthless now. Hearing this, Zhou Zhen felt a chill run through his whole body. He knew the other person was telling the truth. But after a few seconds of silence, the person on the other end spoke again. However, just half an hour ago, Isang Technology called. They are willing to buy all your assets in Chengnan Industrial Park as a package, including the factory buildings, equipment, and land use rights. Hearing that, Zhou Zhen's vision went black. A wave of humiliation and rage crushed what little reason he had left. Not even in his dreams. He roared, I'd rather burn the whole factory to the ground than hand it over. Zhou Zhen's hoarse, exhausted roar echoed through the office. But a cold reply came from the other end of the line. The industrial park in Chengnan is the core pledged asset. The bank has the right to dispose of the collateral unilaterally. We're only informing you. Otherwise, you'll lose everything, and you'll never have a chance to recover. As soon as those words were spoken, the call was disconnected. Only Zhou Zhen was left standing there in a daze. Meanwhile, at Isang Technology's office, Jiang Yi had just finished his call with President Li. She looked at you and said, the bank has already agreed to the acquisition. They'll start putting pressure on Zhou Zhen right away. You didn't turn around. You just replied calmly, handle the rest yourself. From now on, you can make the call on small matters like this. Hearing this, Jiang Yi froze in place. He was extremely shocked, but he still forced down the turmoil in his heart. Understood, I'll take care of every detail. After nodding, you headed for the production floor. The atmosphere in the workshop was electric. All the employees were excitedly talking about it. You slowly walk up to the crowd. The next moment, everyone turns to look at you at once. After looking around, you speak calmly. Everyone's worked hard these past few days. Today's launch event was a great success. I won't let down anyone who trusts me. Starting this month, all employee salaries will be increased by 100%. As soon as you finish speaking, the entire workshop falls silent. The silence lasts for several seconds. Then thunderous cheers erupt. You pay no attention to the employees' celebration. You just wave Sunlei over. Then you turn and walk into the private office next door. Seeing this, Sunlei quickly follows. Inside the control room, you say, Tianheng Energy's industrial park in the south of the city will soon be ours. I need you and your team to set up a special task force immediately. Based on the technology and Tianheng's existing production lines, come up with a retrofit plan that is the fastest and most cost-effective. Sunlei's breathing catches when he hears this. He didn't expect Tianheng Energy's business to be about to be acquired by you, but he quickly calms down. But Tianheng's production lines simply can manufacture Yuansing 1, and retrofitting them will take a lot of time. But you shake your head. We'll voluntarily give up part of our proprietary technology. We'll use the existing equipment to produce a scaled-back version of the Yuansing battery. Its performance would still be enough to outperform every lithium battery on the market. At the same time, the workload would drop dramatically. I understand, Mr. Guo. We can launch 2 product lines. Our own production will supply the highest-end automotive and aerospace sectors, while Tianheng's output will be used to capture the end-user market. Within 2 days, I'll finish the preliminary proposal report. With that, Sunlei immediately turns and leaves. Not long after, Jiang Yi pushes open the door to the control room. He hands the tablet to you. The bank has approved our acquisition offer, and it has started asset preservation procedures for Tianheng Energy. They accepted almost all of our terms, but you only give it a quick glance. I told you before, you have full authority over these matters. I just discussed a plan with Sunlei. Follow up on it. If there is nothing else, I'll get going. Text me if anything comes up. After that, you got up and left. Now you need to buy supplies, and then go back to Apocalypse era and keep digging. Half an hour later, you arrived at the global storage wholesale market. It was one of the biggest supply distribution hubs in the whole city. After looking around, you walked straight into the market management office. Hello, I need to buy a batch of supplies. After saying that, you took out a sheet of paper and set it on the desk. The manager casually picked up the list and gave it a quick look. The next second, his expression froze. 500 tons each of premium rice and flour. 100 tons each of frozen pork, beef, and lamb. Sir, are you sure this isn't a mistake? You said nothing. You just showed him your bank balance. As soon as he saw it, the manager immediately put on a flattering smile. Please wait a moment, sir. I'll coordinate it right away. I guarantee I'll get everything ready as fast as possible. Over the next few hours, the entire wholesale market got busy. Countless forklifts and laborers were mobilized. Bag after bag of rice and box after box of frozen meat were moved out of the warehouses. Then they were loaded onto more than a dozen huge container trucks. At that point, using quality inspection as an excuse, you rented a temporary transfer warehouse behind the market. Soon, one fully loaded truck after another drove into the warehouse. The goods on the list quickly piled up into mountains. Before long, everything had been delivered. You paid without hesitation. This made the manager even more enthusiastic. He even said that if you came to him again, he'd give you the best possible discount. Not long after, you sent everyone away. Then you stood in front of the mountain of rice sacks and gave a light wave of your hand. The next second, the small mountain of supplies vanished into thin air. They appeared intact inside the dimensional warehouse. The whole process was quiet and efficient. Besides that, you also bought tons of oil, salt, and sugar, along with wall-like stacks of canned food, compressed biscuits, and instant noodles, as well as countless medicines and medical equipment. On top of that, you also ordered more than 100 barrels of gasoline and diesel. You saw that the dimensional space still had 1/10 of its capacity left, so you immediately drove to a large hardware and building materials market to buy all kinds of industrial materials, including several CNC machine tools and 3D printing equipment. When the dimensional warehouse was completely packed full, you drove the truck back to the convenience store. That familiar feeling of weightlessness hit you again. The world in front of you began to twist and fold. The next second, you arrived in the apocalyptic world. You quietly adjusted to the sensory shock of the transition. A moment later, you picked up the walkie-talkie. How are things at Nightingale Tech Park? Everything is going smoothly. As instructed, we repaired the park's surveillance and alarm systems and set up 3 defensive lines centered on the dorm area. Nothing gets past our eyes. Over the past few days, more than 300 scavengers have tried to sneak into the park. We captured some of them. Nightblade now has 43 full members. You've done well. You've exceeded my expectations. Send people to the plaza now. I brought something for you. Understood, boss. Nightingale replied in a crisp, steady voice. After ending the call, you switched to the public channel. Trade, as usual. Just one short sentence. Hit like a depth charge. The next second, replies came one after another over the radio. Boulder copies. Hive copies. Lighthouse copies. Arc copies. Because you hadn't shown up for 2 days after the announcement, the 4 major factions had been on edge. After getting a taste of fresh beef and the pleasure of cigarettes and alcohol, no one wanted to go back to their old life. Rumors said you were unhappy with the trade. Some even said you had died. Now that you've returned, the 4 major factions immediately breathed a sigh of relief. In less than 20 minutes, the convoy Nightingale sent arrived at the plaza. Leading the group was the scar-faced brute. The defiant arrogance was gone from his face. In its place were awe and fervor. Hello, boss. Seeing this, you gave a slight wave. The next second, boxes of supplies appeared. There were canned goods, seafood, and lamb chops, as well as drinks, beer, and peanuts. There were even several brand new portable generators. These are your reward and supplies. Tell Nightingale to go ahead and do it. There are plenty of supplies. Seeing this, Scarface's eyes instantly turned red. Thank you, boss. I'll make sure Nightingale gets the message after the convoy left. The trade teams from the 4 major factions arrived one after another. This time, they brought even more gold and crystal cores. The whole transaction went smoothly. In front of you, the 4 major factions were like well-behaved schoolchildren. Soon, everyone left. The square fell silent again. You counted the haul, over 500 kilograms of gold, and 63 crystal cores. Then, without hesitation, you absorbed all the crystal cores. In an instant, a huge surge of energy exploded inside you. Your telekinetic limit easily broke through to 500 kilograms. At the same time, your dimensional storage expanded to 6,000 cubic meters, and you unlocked the ability to shift through space. Now, you can spend mental energy to blink freely within a range of 20 meters. Before your mental energy runs dry, you can blink at least 30 times. Next, you began testing by focusing your telekinesis on a coin and firing it. In a split second, the coin's speed shot past the speed of sound. Feeling the surging power inside you, you burst out laughing. This is the most basic law of the wasteland world. Then, you contacted Ark over the radio. Have Zhou Yuan and Wang Chongming come see me in the square. I'll arrange it right away. Bai Lu replied, without any hesitation. The Ark convoy soon arrived at the square. Several fully armed soldiers escorted Zhou Yuan and Wang Chongming. The two quickly stepped forward. A moment later, they arrived at the entrance of the convenience store. I need more parts. Where else can I get them? Hearing this, Wang Chongming took a deep breath. There are 3 production bases, but the situation is very grim. The first is in the heavy industrial district in the north of the city. That is one of the areas with the highest concentration of zombies. The second is at the logistics transfer port in the western suburbs. That area used to have an extremely dense population, but now it has become a dead city. As for the third one, it is very far away. With the current traffic conditions, it'll be hard to get there. Aside from the Thor number 7 battery, what other technology does Tenshang Company have? At that moment, Wang Chongming and Zhou Yuan exchanged a glance. Then, Wang Chongming spoke. Thor number 8. Its energy density is 3 times that of number 7, and it can deliver instant overload output. It was developed specifically for certain special equipment, but its core materials are extremely rare, and the manufacturing process is extremely complex, which drives the cost too high. The company only kept 1 production line at the West Suburb Logistics Port Base. Hearing that, you fell silent, and the mood grew a little heavy. Just then, Zhou Yuan suddenly said excitedly, Tianxiang Company is more than just a battery supplier. Before the disaster, the company poured huge investment into launching the Pioneer project. The project's final product was Pioneer 1. It was meant for construction and mining. It stands about 6 meters tall. Fully electric, it can carry up to 6 Thor number 8 batteries. On a full charge, it can handle 72 hours of high-intensity operation. Hearing this, you fell into thought. Even if this thing wasn't built for combat, with a few modifications, it could still become a true weapon of war. Thinking of that, you immediately asked. And after talking it through, you learned more. Pioneer's main R&D base is in Haizhou City, 200 kilometers away. There are 3 Pioneer prototypes at the base, along with parts for 10 more units and 1 production line. But the trip there is long and extremely dangerous. Your heart started racing uncontrollably. The impact Pioneer would cause would be 100 times greater than the Thor number 7 battery. You had to get Pioneer. Soon, you calmed down. You can go back now. Then you turned and walked back into the convenience store and slowly pulled down the rolling shutter, cutting off everything outside. Before long, the sound of an armored vehicle engine rang out across the square. Then, the sound gradually faded into the distance. Inside the convenience store, you sat in a chair and started brainstorming. Going there alone was far too risky, and the Nightblade squad doesn't have enough people. The 4 major factions have complicated personnel makeups. Their equipment quality is all over the place. There is no way they could make a long journey. Right now, they can barely even break into the logistics port in the western suburbs. You need thousands of people, a well-equipped army with strong resolve, and that takes a huge amount of supplies behind it, as well as a secure rear base. You need to make the convenience store the center and start major construction. Build a well-fortified base, then gradually expand outward. Dig every valuable thing out of the ruins of the apocalypse. Once the initial plan took shape, you immediately picked up the walkie-talkie and contacted Nightingale. I have a new plan. Build a base centered around the convenience store plaza. I need manpower. I want anyone who has worked in construction or industrial trades. Your job is to find those people. At that, Nightingale's breathing grew a little quicker. She suppressed her inner shock. Right away, I'll get on it now. After ending the call, you immediately opened the public channel. This is Xiao Guo. I will establish a permanent trading post and safe zone in the central plaza. Starting tomorrow, large-scale construction will begin here. During construction, I need security. The scale will be twice that of the attack on Skyvault Tech Park, and supplies will be settled daily. These words hit the leaders of the 4 major factions like a sledgehammer. They were both furious and alarmed, but they had no other choice, simply because you had an endless supply of resources backing you, and you weren't worried in the slightest. Right now, you had more important things to do than worry about a counterattack from the 4 major factions. You pulled out a sheet of paper and quickly sketched on the back with a pen. With the convenience store as the starting point, the entire central plaza would serve as the core zone. The first step was the perimeter wall, a wall strong enough to withstand a massive zombie horde, even impacts from heavy mutated creatures. A preliminary estimate put the height at no less than 10 meters, and the thickness could not be less than 3 meters. The wall had to be poured with reinforced concrete, with high-strength alloy steel plates embedded inside as the framework. This was undoubtedly a massive undertaking. The materials required would be astronomical. Yet to you, none of that was a problem at all. All you needed was a warehouse big enough, and a purchase list big enough. At that moment, dawn was just breaking, and outside the rolling shutter, scavengers waited expectantly. You walked out of the convenience store and said bluntly, "I'm recruiting workers. The terms are 3 meals a day, with all the meat you can eat." The moment those words were spoken, the survivors instantly exploded with excitement. You didn't explain anything. You just casually raised a hand and waved it. The next second, several cases of canned luncheon meat appeared out of thin air. Then, you said calmly, "Sanner, spread the word. We're recruiting workers here at the square to build the base. Anyone who is willing should come register now. These cans are your reward for spreading the word. In 8 hours, construction will officially begin." At that moment, a man in the crowd strode forward. He grabbed a can and headed toward the depths of the ruins. "I'm going to tell my family the good news." Seeing this, everyone else instantly caught on. They rushed like mad toward every corner of the city and quickly spread the news. Once all the scavengers in the square had left, you picked up the walkie-talkie and contacted Nightingale. "Gather all your people. Meet at the square in 8 hours. Prepare to receive the first group of construction workers and supplies." Then, you switched to the public channel. "In 8 hours, work at Central Square will begin on schedule. I need all defense units in position before construction starts. In 8 hours, I'll pay out the first day's wages." With that, you shut off the comms, without even waiting for a reply. Then, you pulled down the rolling shutter and traveled through again. After the familiar feeling of weightlessness, you returned to the real world once again. Right now, countless supplies were waiting to be purchased, so you immediately thought of Boss Tang. Then, you took out your phone and called Su Wan. "I have a shipment here, 800 kilograms in total. I need to report it to Elder Tang right away." Su Wan's voice trembled with shock. Soon, Elder Tang took the call. "Mr. Guo, the price can stay the same as last time. But, besides cash, I need a few other things too. The more cement and rebar, the better. And construction equipment like excavators and bulldozers, as long as they work." As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Tang fell silent for a long time. After a moment, he finally spoke. You're asking for a lot of material. To get it all together at once will take some time. Hearing that, you replied with a faint smile. For anyone else, that would be a problem. But I believe for you, Elder Tang, that is not a problem. I want results within 6 hours. With that, you hung up the phone. At that moment, Elder Tang was resting with his eyes closed in the study. Seeing this, Suan said worriedly, this is already beyond the scope of our business. There is no way to get everything through normal channels in such a short time. And these items are far too likely to attract attention. However, Elder Tang slowly opened his eyes. When Mr. Guo brought out Yuansing 1, wasn't he that eye-catching too? The people above have had their eyes on Mr. Guo for a long time. Compared to him, what do our little moves amount to? Everything he wants must be gathered within 6 hours. We can raise the price, but the goods must be delivered right away. I'll get on it right away. She knew Elder Tang had already made up his mind. This was a huge gamble. The stake was the Tang family's fate for the next several decades. Meanwhile, you went to the global storage wholesale market again. When the manager saw you, his face instantly broke into a flattering smile. Boss Gi, you're here. You said nothing in response. You simply took out a list and handed it over. The manager took the list with both hands. The next second, his eyes nearly popped out in shock. The amount of supplies was more than 3 times what it was last time. On top of that, there were 1,000 sets each of sight gear like tents and hard hats. At that moment, even the manager's hand holding the list was trembling. Yet your tone remained completely calm. Prepare the goods according to the list. Money is not an issue. Understood. Understood. I'll take care of it right away. After that, the manager didn't dare ask another question. He grabbed the list and rushed straight to the warehouse area. The entire wholesale market once again kicked into overdrive. And you rented the same transfer warehouse as last time. You stood at the entrance, watching truckload after truckload of supplies being moved in. Not long after, when the last crate of supplies was stored in the dimensional warehouse, Suwan sent a message. Everything is in place. It is parked at the abandoned industrial park on the east side of the city. The handoff can happen at any time. At that moment, Zhang Yi called as well. A director surnamed Zhang from the Ministry of Energy specifically asked to meet you. He is very interested in our batteries and our future production plans. At 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, he'll personally lead a team to Yuansing Technology and will formally receive them. I'll handle the rest. The acquisition of Tianheng Production Park requires the first payment to be released. The total is 300 million. No problem, I'll take care of it. After saying that, you hung up. Not long after, you arrived at Jingxin Tea House. After getting the notice, Suwan was already waiting at the door to greet you. You opened the trunk and pointed at several boxes as you spoke. Everything is here. Have someone move it inside. Hearing that, Suwan immediately started making arrangements. She then led you to the reception room. In the reception room, Elder Tang wore a warm smile. Mr. Guo, I lived up to the task. I've gathered everything you asked for. You smiled when you saw that. Thank you for going to the trouble, Elder Tang. It is only right that I do my part. The total price of the gold is 656 million. At cost, the things you need come to 180 million. I've also had Xiao Su prepare the funds for the Tianheng acquisition. I'll transfer the rest along with the earlier funds into your account. Also, to celebrate the successful end of Mr. Guo's launch event, I'll personally give Mr. Guo 5 million as a gift. I hope Mr. Guo won't turn down this gesture from Elder Tang. This doesn't sound like business. But Elder Tang laughed. From the moment you brought out Yuansing 1, I knew you were no ordinary man. I'm old now, but the Tang family still has to carry on. So I've decided to stand by your side. Whatever you need, as long as I can make it happen, I'll do it without hesitation. Also, Director Zhang. I've dealt with him before. As long as you show you're willing to cooperate and come up with a production plan that satisfies them, they'll clear a lot of obstacles out of your way. Thank you for the advice, Elder Tang. I'll have Xiaobei gradually get involved in the business from here on out. I hope Mr. Guo will be understanding. You said nothing more. You just nodded. Then, you turned and left the study. Suwan quickly followed. Elder Tang stood alone by the window. He knew that starting today, the Tang family was completely tied to you. Soon after, you and Suwan arrived at the abandoned industrial park on the east side of the city. In front of you were dozens of excavators and bulldozers, with piles of cement and rebar stacked nearby like little hills, along with more than a dozen large diesel generators. You really went to a lot of trouble. It is what we should do. If anything comes up, just contact me. I'll head out first. As soon as he finished speaking, You nodded, and Suwon left on her own. You didn't waste any more time. With a wave of your hand, you stored the steel beasts one by one in your dimensional space. Next were the mountain-like piles of cement and rebar. After that, you drove the truck all the way back to the convenience store. After pulling down the shutter, you quickly crossed over. In an instant, you returned to the post-apocalyptic world once again. At that moment, the square was packed with a huge crowd. Members of Nightingale and Yaren formed a human wall, keeping the excited survivors away from the center of the square. At the same time, the troops from the 4 major factions had finished taking their positions in the distance. The hastily built machine gun emplacements formed a defensive perimeter. You slowly walked out of the convenience store. You looked around and cleared the center area. You swept your gaze around, clearing out the center area. The Yaren members moved at once, quickly opening a path through the crowd. Then they cleared out the largest open space in the middle of the square. Next, you stood at the entrance of the convenience store and waved your hand. In an instant, hundreds of bags of cement dropped down. They were neatly stacked on the ground. Then came bundles of rebar and mountain, like piles of sand and gravel, along with box after box of tools. But this was only the beginning. Under everyone's stunned gaze, one piece of heavy construction equipment after another slammed to the ground. Gasps immediately rippled through the site. You paid them no attention and simply spoke to Nightingale. Find all the engineers and skilled workers. Have them inspect the equipment. Have the electricians start the generators. Set up the lighting equipment. I want this place as bright as day. Everyone else, split into teams and clear the foundation. Get ready to lay the rebar. Nightingale didn't hesitate at all after hearing that. She raised a loudspeaker, and her voice carried across the entire square. Everyone with construction experience, step forward. Construction workers, stand on the left. Anyone who can operate heavy machinery, go to the right. Anyone who can build a local power grid, stand in the middle. Move it, all of you. As soon as she finished speaking, the crowd sprang into action. They quickly began sorting themselves out across the square. Soon, 3 long lines formed in the square. Everyone else, split yourselves into groups by physical strength. You'll be responsible for moving materials and clearing the site. Everyone is to follow orders. Work hard. Anyone who cuts corners or tries anything crooked will face the consequences. After saying that, Nightingale raised her hand and snapped her fingers. The next second, flames surged up and instantly melted the steel pipes beside her into molten metal. At the sight of this, every survivor felt a chill run through them. They immediately got to work. Several electricians began checking the fuel lines and connecting cables. Moments later, the diesel generators let out a low roar. Right after that, the bulldozers and excavators were started one after another. For a while, the wasteland once again echoed with the symphony of industrial civilization. The bulldozers began clearing away wrecked vehicles and debris. Meanwhile, the survivors put on hard hats and gloves and used basic tools to pry up the concrete and haul away rubble. Thousands of people on the site were working at the same time. At the edge of the site, several huge field cauldrons had already been set up. Before long, the smell of meat soup drifted across the entire square. It became everyone's strongest motivation. At this moment, inside the Ark's command room, the chief, the captain, and Bailu stood side by side. Staring at the electronic screen, one of them said grimly, "He isn't just building a city. He is creating a new order." The people inside the city were building with hope, while the soldiers outside fought to protect that hope. Soon, night fell, but the central square was as bright as day. Sparks flew from the rebar under the cutting machines. Bulldozers pushed discarded concrete into deep pits. The workers shouted in rhythm as they carried the foundation rebar into the trenches. For a moment, it felt like everything had gone back to the days before the apocalypse. At that moment, an awakened fighter from the Nightblade squad shouted, "Stay sharp. The sooner we finish, the sooner we eat." Outside the construction site, along the ring-shaped defensive line, a commander was using his rifle to pick off zombies with precision. He shouted, "Hold the line. Don't let the zombies get close, or I'll kick your ass." As soon as he finished speaking, Nightingale appeared behind the defensive line. "Mr. Guo, send your representatives to settle today's payment." Hearing that, the 4 commanders lit up with joy. They followed Nightingale toward the center of the square, and you were standing at the entrance of the convenience store. When you saw the group approach, you casually raised a hand and waved it, and several small mountains of supplies appeared out of thin air. There were more than 200 cases of canned luncheon meat, along with compressed biscuits and purified water. Then came medicine for treating external injuries, and even aged strong liquor, along with more than 100 cartons of cigarettes. The 4 commanders stood there, dumbfounded. "This is the payment for the first day. The 4 of your factions can split it evenly. How you haul it away?" and divide it up as your business. After saying that, you turned and walked back into the convenience store. The 4 representatives were left standing there. After a long while, the 4 of them snapped out of it and immediately barked into their communicators. Get people over here to move the supplies, now. There are canned goods, cigarettes, liquor, everything. At once, the soldiers' excited cheers rang out across the encampment. Soon, trucks from the 4 major factions came roaring in. Under their representatives' orders, they began frantically loading the supplies. Just as the whole square was caught up in the joy of the harvest, a scream suddenly came over the public channel. A lion pack is attacking Block 3 on the east side. There are too many to count. At that moment, the smiles on the soldiers' faces instantly froze. The survivors at the construction site also started to panic. But Scorpion snatched the communicator and shouted, "Bang every can you just got. Hold your guns steady. Fire hard and set up the first line of defense up front." As soon as he finished speaking, the other commanders quickly gave the same order. The soldiers' morale surged to an all-time high. They quickly moved into combat positions and aimed their guns at the end of the street. However, panic began to spread across the construction site. The survivors dropped their tools and instinctively tried to run. Just then, Nightingale's voice rang out. "Anyone who runs now dies. Mr. Guo is watching from the rear. The construction site is the safest place. If you want to live, keep working." As soon as she said that, the crowd calmed down a little, but the fear was still spreading. By then, the tremors in the ground were becoming clearer and clearer. At the end of the street, the lion pack poured out like a flood. The next second, dozens of machine guns along the ring-shaped defense line opened fire at once. The dense rain of bullets tore hole after hole through the zombie horde. At the same time, explosions echoed through the night sky. The soldiers held the horde 200 meters away, but there were simply too many of them. The battle gradually fell into a stalemate. Just then, a heavy boom came from the rear of the horde. A giant mutated zombie stepped out. Its entire body was covered in a hardened shell. It completely shrugged off the grenades and charged straight at Rockbase's defensive line. Then a streak of fire shot from Nightingale's hand. The mutated zombie's head was pierced instantly. Then, carried by its momentum, it started to roll, and finally slammed into the fortifications, sending sandbags and barricades flying in all directions. But that monster never got back up. At that moment, the other awakened ones also sprang into action. For a moment, all kinds of abilities exploded through the zombie horde. However, the street was simply too wide. The zombie horde couldn't be wiped out quickly in one concentrated attack. On the comms channel, roars and cries for help were all mixed together. The battle grew more and more brutal. Even though the soldiers fought bravely, gaps in the defensive line still inevitably appeared. Dozens of zombies broke through the wall of fire and charged at the line. The soldiers had no choice but to fight them hand to hand. As more and more zombies poured in, the entire defensive line was on the verge of collapse. At the construction site, the survivors huddled together and trembled at the sight. Even Yang's face turned grim. Just then, you walked out of the convenience store. The next second, you vanished. Then, you reappeared dozens of meters away. After several flashes, you reached the high ground and calmly looked down at the incoming zombie horde. At the sight of this, everyone turned to look at you. Then, a wooden crate appeared in front of you and shattered. In an instant, dozens of steel balls poured out. They hovered in midair. Then, you lightly waved your hand at the zombie horde. A metal stream made of dozens of steel balls shot straight out. The sound even drowned out the rapid gunfire. In an instant, the zombies in front of the line were pierced and ripped apart. Right after that, a second wave of steel balls shot out. Then came the third wave. Where the fourth metal torrent passed, it crushed everything in its path. You were like a human Gatling gun, single-handedly clearing out the horde within 50 meters of the defensive line. At that moment, the entire square fell into an eerie silence. Only the generators remained, and the heavy air was thick with the smell of blood. A moment later, you slowly descended from above. Everyone's eyes were fixed on you, as if they had just witnessed a miracle. But you only spoke calmly. "Keep working." Yang was the first to snap out of it. Her voice rang across the whole area through the loudspeaker. "Get up and get back to work. Mr. Guo, we don't feed idle people here." The next second, the crowd began to stir. The survivors quickly went back to work. A deep sense of awe rose in everyone's heart. Inside the Hanshi stronghold, King Yama felt helpless as he watched the live feed. After a long silence, he picked up the communicator. "Carry out my order. From this moment on, Pan Shi, everyone is to follow Mr. Gulao's orders without question." At the same time, inside the lighthouse outpost, the scholar in white had already figured out that you had two abilities. He sent his analysis report back to headquarters, but got only one reply. Stop all probing. Meet all of Mr. Guo's needs. At that moment, you sat in a chair inside the convenience store, replaying what had just happened in your mind. You knew very well that leaving the convenience store on your own was risky, but there was also a reason you chose to act in person. If a gap opened in the defense line, casualties were inevitable, and it also gave you a chance to intimidate everyone. But more importantly, it gave the 4 leaders an answer, letting them know you weren't limited to staying inside the convenience store. The high spirits at the construction site showed that this first show was a huge success. That was the only rule in the apocalypse. Thinking of that, you messaged Nightingale. Go clean up the battlefield. Bring back the crystal cores. After hearing this, Nightingale quickly gathered the Nightblade squad, and then gave the order to collect the crystal cores. The Nightblade members moved out at once when they heard the order. Seeing this, the 4 commanders also told their soldiers to help. So, in less than half an hour, the battlefield was completely cleaned up. Nightingale carried more than a dozen buckets of energy crystal cores to the entrance of the convenience store. But you gave the pile of crystal cores a light wave of your hand, and in an instant, half of them disappeared. The other half stayed in the buckets. You looked at Scorpion and the other 3 commanders. The 4 of you can split these among your forces. At your words, all 4 of them held their breath. Mr. Guo, you were the one who handled most of this battle. It wouldn't be right for us to take this much. Hearing that, you waved your hand. Anyone who fought deserves credit. Then, thank you, Mr. Guo. The other 3 quickly thanked you as well. After that, the 4 of them split up the crystal cores. You looked at the survivors, then raised your hand and shouted, "Time to eat." The next second, cheers instantly erupted. The survivors all threw down their tools. They rushed toward the field cauldrons like madmen. Seeing this, the Nightingale members immediately stepped in to keep order. Line up. Anyone who cuts in line can forget about eating today. As soon as he finished speaking, the survivors settled down. Then they lined up in long lines on their own. Before long, all the food had been handed out. After countless people got their lunchboxes, they immediately squatted on the ground and wolfed the food down. Some even burst into tears after taking a bite of meat. The smell of meat drifted across the square. The soldiers also gathered around the tables. Each table had 8 dishes and a soup. There were also plenty of cigarettes and drinks. The soldiers stuffed themselves, while laughing and chatting loudly without holding back. The tension and exhaustion from earlier were completely gone. An hour later, everyone had eaten and drunk their fill. At that moment, the site supervisor stood up and patted his belly. If you're full, get up and get back to work. No one's sleeping tonight. Let's try to finish pouring all the foundations before daybreak. As soon as he finished speaking, 1,000 voices answered in unison. The survivors didn't complain at all. They picked up their tools and went back to their posts full of energy. The roar of machinery started up again. At the same time, the relief troops from the 4 major forces arrived. They looked at the mess left on the tables and smelled the aroma still hanging in the air. All they could do was regret not volunteering for the first defense shift. But Nightingale came over with his men carrying several boxes. The boxes were filled with brand new cigarettes. Mr. Guo sent these as a perk for the brothers on the night shift. 1 pack each to keep you sharp. When you finish one, come get another. There is plenty. As soon as he finished speaking, a stir spread through the position. We get cigarettes as soon as we get here. Mr. Guo is really generous. After the soldiers got their brand new cigarettes, their annoyance and complaints instantly disappeared. Excitement took their place. For a while, countless wisps of smoke rose into the air. A blissful look spread across everyone's faces. By 3 in the morning, the noise at the construction site hadn't died down. Instead, it only grew louder. Several huge concrete mixer trucks rumbled loudly. A moment later, gray concrete would flow through the delivery pipes and be poured precisely into the deep foundation pits. The site supervisor stood off to the side, watching it all excitedly. Just then, a Nightblade member walked over to the old supervisor. "Mr. Guo, someone's looking for you." The supervisor froze for a moment when he heard that. But then he quickly headed for the convenience store. At that moment, you were sitting in a chair by the door. The supervisor stopped at the entrance and said respectfully, "Mr. Guo, what did you need me for?" You nodded. Without wasting any words, you then handed him a blueprint. The foundation was poured well, but the wall section needs some changes. As soon as you finished speaking, the supervisor quickly took the blueprint. The blueprint was clearly marked with rows of dense openings. Before the supervisor could ask, you said calmly, "Leave firing ports and internal passageways inside the wall. Build battlements and watchtowers on top. Leave conduits for electrical cables. to make it easier to install cameras and searchlights. I want this wall not only to stop zombies, but to kill them too. As for manpower and materials, you don't need to worry about that. Hearing that, the supervisor's breathing grew heavier. He could tell at a glance that this was a standard military fortification. At that moment, the supervisor looked up. His eyes filled with resolve. I will complete the mission. With that, he turned and ran back to the site with the blueprint in hand. Next, the supervisor gathered all the key technical staff. Using the new blueprint, he explained the key points over and over. Soon, the sky began to grow light. Every survivor had bloodshot eyes. But there was no sign of fatigue on their faces. There was only the excitement of finishing the job. By then, all the foundations had been poured. Several engineers gathered around the blueprint and used steel to make oddly shaped molds. These molds would be fixed between the wall's steel framework. Then they would just need to wait for the concrete wall to be poured, and it would form standard firing ports and passageways. The construction is now several times harder than before, yet not a single person complained. They all knew this solid wall would be everyone's hope for survival. Before long, the crane slowly lifted the first section of the wall and carefully set it onto the foundation. It lined up perfectly with the embedded rebar. At that moment, thunderous cheers erupted across the entire site. The survivors waved the tools in their hands, and even their red eyes filled with tears. They looked excitedly at the results of their hard work. Even the soldiers passing by during the shift change on the defensive line stopped and stared. They saw the tremendous changes at the construction site, and every one of them marveled at how strong the city wall was. Just then, the smell of food drifted through the air again. At the same time, Nightingale's voice rang out. Everyone, come get breakfast. Several tables were piled with food. There was steaming hot rice porridge and freshly steamed meat buns. At the sight of it, the workers immediately set down their tools and lined up on their own. This time, no one wolfed down their food. They ate slowly and calmly, as if they had returned to the peaceful life they once had. At that moment, you walked out of the convenience store and called Nightingale to the door. I'm leaving. I'll be gone for about 12 hours. While I'm away, you'll be fully in charge here. Construction can't stop. Coordinate the defenses of the 4 major factions as well. Keep recruiting. Don't worry about having too many people. As long as they pass verification and there is nothing wrong, let them in to work. After hearing this, Nightingale answered solemnly, Yes, boss. With that, you looked at the lively scene in front of you, then turned and went back into the convenience store. Then you activated the traversal. When you returned to the real world, half an hour later, you arrived outside Isang Technology's office building. Jiang Yi was already waiting at the entrance. Mr. Guo and Director Zhang are upstairs in the reception room. You nodded when you heard that. Then you followed Jiang Yi into the building. Before long, you arrived at the reception room. There, a middle-aged man was sitting upright in a chair. It was Director Zhang from the Ministry of Energy. A secretary was also standing behind him. When Director Zhang saw you, he stood up. Mr. Guo, you're quite young and accomplished. You smiled and reached out your hand as well. Hello, Director Zhang. Then, both sides took their seats. Jiang Yi began introducing the company's development plan according to the agenda. Director Zhang listened very attentively, while the secretary quickly took notes in a notebook. More than 10 minutes later, Jiang Yi finished his presentation. Director Zhang spoke first. I've read this technical report. You could say it is groundbreaking, but I want to know whether the source of this technology is reliable and whether future upgrades can be guaranteed. How quickly can production capacity be restored? Jiang Yi was instantly alarmed. Yet your expression didn't change at all. As for the source of the technology, that is a trade secret. I'm afraid I can't disclose it. I can guarantee that this technology is entirely under my personal control. There are no patent disputes whatsoever. Future upgrades have already been planned through the 5th generation. Production can be restored within a month. The only thing that might slow things down is some administrative approval procedures. At that moment, a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of Director Zhang's mouth. You don't need to worry about the approval process. But I do have one condition. I hope the state will invest in setting up a new joint venture to jointly develop and produce the Farstar series batteries with you. In return, the state will provide you with full policy support. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Yi looked over nervously. He understood that this meant the state wanted to bring Farstar technology under its wing and make you hand over the most critical part. The next second, you smiled. Not a bad proposal, but you seem to have gotten one thing wrong. I'm sitting here today, not to seek the state's help, but to give the state an opportunity to take the lead in the energy revolution. As for cooperation, I can set up a new sales company dedicated to handling orders for military industry and national strategic projects. And Yuanshan Technology must hold a 90% stake. That is my limit. At that moment, the atmosphere in the reception room turned ice cold. Director Zhang's expression visibly darkened. Without the state's approval, your battery won't leave this building. You leaned back in your chair, looking relaxed. Which do you think matters more? The approval process or freeing the country from its energy constraints for good? The energy density of the 5th generation technology is 3 times that of Yuansing 1, and it is already in the prototype testing stage. I can keep my technology in Longguo, but I can also take it to any other country. As soon as the words left your mouth, Director Zhang felt a chill run down his back. If this technology ended up overseas, he couldn't take that responsibility. After thinking it over for a moment, Director Zhang suddenly stood up. Please allow me to make a phone call. With that, Director Zhang took out his phone and walked out of the reception room. 2 minutes later, he walked back into the reception room. He took a deep breath and said, "We agree to all your terms. And not only that, the state will give you all the support you need, with no upper limit." Hearing that, you slowly held out your hand. Then here is to a successful partnership. Seeing this, Director Zhang immediately shook your hand. Here is to a successful partnership.